Hello viewers, how's it going? Welcome to a very interesting and quite a different live stream for me. The good guys and girls over at VCO have I'm getting a bit of an echo on my screen here, but yeah, we've got a very interesting stream here on ACC. I'm going to be hosting this Infinity event. Today's live stream is going to feature 5 races on ACC, 5 different tracks, 5 different cars, and I'm really looking forward to this. It's a different format, something really exciting. Tomorrow's stream is going to feature 19 races, so it's quite an interesting format. With $5,000 on the line, we will go over all the information very soon. Okay, allow me to introduce you to my co-commentators for today's event. We've got Arjuna and Lewis McGlade. How's it going, guys?
Not bad. How about you?
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited for this because it's been a while in the making, and I think the format should bring up some interesting racing.
Yeah, you know, I'm looking forward to the fact that this is the, 4th time at this point that we've done VCO Infinity, 24 individual races with 5 cars and 5 different tracks. But Lewis, it's the first time that we've kind of split the racing up, compressed the racing down as well to just 20 minutes. And we're expecting plenty of chaos, that's for sure, here on Assetto Corsa Competizione.
Yeah, I mean, normally we're expecting this event happens over one 24-hour period. You know, we all get very excited with it, and it's crazy. This is a slightly different way of doing it. How, like you say, we're doing 5 races this evening, and then doing the other 19 tomorrow, which again, I think it's going to be very interesting. We've got a couple of teams on there that we're really looking towards as being the major favourites, but I think the big talking point at the moment is that Arjuna can't tie a tie, so that's good. Look at it.
Okay, let's take a look at the format of the event today. So each team, there's a good number of teams, but each team has to field between 3 and 5 drivers. And as you can see, each driver must drive at least 2 different cars, because there's a good range of different vehicles on show today and in tomorrow's live stream as well. And drivers cannot do back-to-back races.
Yeah, because the racing is so hectic, Steve, I think one thing that we've talked about in previous Infinities is some drivers have tried to do back-to-back races, and it's often put them on the back foot in qualifying. So, new for this VCOxLFM Infinity, drivers cannot do back-to-back races, with the exception of the last race today and the first race tomorrow. If you want to have someone have a nice night of sleep and get ready to go for the first race tomorrow, you can slide them in quite easily.
And here's the 5 different cars we're going to be using today. So we're going to be ranging from the GT3s, which we're very familiar with, of course. GT2 cars, they're fairly new in ACC, but a bit more power, less downforce, a bit trickier to drive. And of course, the Porsche GT3 Cup. I've raced against these at the Nürburgring, very fast cars, almost on par with the GT3s. And then the GT4, something I'm more familiar with racing this year. So as you can probably tell from that graphic there, a range of different cars. It's good to see that drivers are going to have to adapt to something different rather than just GT3s, which ACC is obviously known for. So a range of different cars. It'll be exciting to see who can adapt to these the best. And here are the circuits which are going to be featuring today: Paul Ricard, Barcelona, COTA, Monza, and Bathurst. So these, I mean, I'm already looking at Monza, guys. We know that Monza has its fair amount of jeopardy, of course, with those chicanes. The first chicane, the second chicane, all of the chicanes, potential carnage. And I'm sure there's going to be some drivers who are going to be left unhappy after that first chicane on the opening lap. A good range of circuits, good range of cars, very much to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, look, I will say for Monza, we'll be racing that in the second race today. That's in the McLaren 650S, which is always good fun. A lot of drivers will talk quite highly about Paul Ricard when it comes to its racing ability. I remember Darren McCormack and Niels Noakes having an absolute ding-dong in the GT4s a long while ago around there. It was great fight. It does provide it, but Arjuna already, I know you know what I'm going to start talking about now. It's Bathurst. It is arguably one of the greatest racetracks on planet Earth. I can't wait to see what that's going to be like today, tomorrow, like with different drivers having to jump in the sprint style format. It's going to be great fun.
Yeah, this is going to be a really fast-paced event. We've got lots of quick-fire races, 20 minutes roughly, and the qualifying format doesn't give the drivers much opportunity to really get the perfect lap down. So as you can see here, here's the full format of the entire event. Obviously, the 5 races we'll have today, which we've just gone over, followed by the 19 races tomorrow. So a really incredible event, 24 different races over 2 days. So it's definitely lots of different, very different combinations to get used to. Obviously, the one I'm looking at is that Monza one especially, but I'm sure throughout this 24 races, there's going to be lots of different, there's going to be moments to look out for.
And we finish things off. Lewis will be delighted to see at his favorite track in the world, Bathurst, with that Ferrari. So that's going to be really interesting, especially if we have a fight, right? Because survival is going to be so important. And Steve, you know, with 28 teams, it's as simple as every position is worth a point. The winner walks away with 28 points per race. So we're not going to necessarily be talking about breaking the points records that Team Redline have set in the previous 3 VCO Infinities. It'll be very interesting to see, though, how close we get to the maximum. 28 times 24. Never trust a commentator's math. I'm not even going to try and say what that is.
No, neither am I. But I'm sure that's there's going to be there's some really good teams out there. So I'm sure there's going to be some very high point scores. But with this structure, even fighting for 20th place, it matters. It's worth 1 point, so you might as well fight for it. So you're going to be fighting for the positions all the way from first all the way down to 27th.
Yeah, indeed. 28 times 24, by the way, is 672. I do that off the top of my head. There was no calculator involved. It's just pure smarts. You've lost your time, mate. My goodness. No, I think the most important bit from what we've known, at least when we've been doing this over the 24-hour period, is that you got to treat it like a mini championship, and in a championship like this, consistency is king, and that's kind of what these drivers really need to focus on, is just getting some good results on the board. If you don't win a race, finish second, third, fourth, fifth, because there's no big jump on penalty as a reward, on points rather, as a reward for winning, it's that kind of requirement to win a lot of races doesn't really matter too much. You can kind of get through with it with a few fourths and fifths and be in a good position points wise.
I absolutely agree with that. I think from my experience of racing, it's not a case of you have to win every race. It's just finish as high up as you can, do that consistently, and eventually that championship table will really favour you. So it's one of those where there's going to be moments where drivers are really going to be fighting very closely. Sometimes it might be the wise decision to back out, play it safe, just get the points.
And, based on that, you may think that qualifying is not important, but I think one thing that we have kind of seen as well is qualifying towards the front, especially in the previous Infinities where we had just 1 lap qualifying. It's relatively important to put that pressure aside and deliver, especially at some of the tracks that we're going to, where track limits, always a discussion point in racing, can be an issue. I'm thinking Paul Ricard, of course, at the end of the long straight, so easy to slip a little bit wide on the exit of the long right-hander and, potentially invalidate a lap time.
Okay, we're going to be moving into the qualifying for the first race. As you can see here, circuits of the Americas in the Maserati GT4 car. And Arjuna, what do you make of this combination?
It's an interesting combination to kick things off, of course. Circuit of the Americas, not necessarily people's favorite track in sim racing. I always kind of say you either like the track or you're not very good at it, or you've got a single monitor and you can't spot the apexes. So, Lewis, I don't know if that's necessarily too harsh an opinion. Come on.
No, do you know what? I think you're spot on. I rate the track, and I'm bad at it, so I'm clearly bucking the trend on that one. But I think it's a great track, and especially in GT4s, things that are a little bit slower, they kind of work a little bit. I mean, obviously, Steve, you'll know a little bit more on that side. They kind of will work quite nicely around the Grand Prix circuit of this.
I think this will be a really fun combination to drive in real life, and I'm sure these guys are having fun right now. I think with the GT4, rather than, let's say, a GT3, it's much more about just really keeping the momentum up, especially through that first sector here at COTA. Lots of swinging left, right, left, right, left, right. You've got to keep that speed up. Any mistake, I think, is punished a lot more. You see a lot of the guys here slowing down to give themselves that clear air, because we only have really 1 attempt at a fast lap.
As they get their way down into the final complex of corners. I mean, we're getting ready to see these laps, I mean, look, there's two major things that I've kind of like highlighted a little bit when taking a little look at the entry list, who we're focused on here. Realistically, there are two main drivers and two main teams that I think will be competing over this VCOxLFM Infinity, which is Brembo and Esports, which is the number 71. You'll see them popping up on the tower. Tobias Gronewold is behind the wheel of that one, and we know that Gronewold's absolutely rapid on ACC. And the 89 BS competition car, that one being driven by Niels Nyox, who we know is rapid, especially in things like GT4s. I mean, we'd always see him in a BMW, so Maserati is a little bit different than what we're normally used to seeing him in, but still, it's those two would be the ones, genuinely, I'm sat here being like, I'm expecting those two to be on the front row, which, to be fair, is a gauntlet down for everyone else. Maybe we're going to see a very spicy grid here. We don't know.
And then I look at some of the rest of the names and I wonder who's going to maybe filter in and be competitive in races here and there, Lewis, but maybe not all the time. You know, the likes of maybe West Competition Racing, Armentario, Absolute Motorsport. You know, you've got Abuladze in the 255 competition entry as well. So I think we've got a nice mix-up of drivers as well. And remember when we had the Was Cooking Racing Adventures win in one of our previous VCO Infinities, what makes these events so fun is it's not just the biggest, the best teams in sim racing, but a nice mix-up as well. And officially, Williams Esports community car entered in, as Zach Sweeney would like to say.
Yeah, it's always good to see a nice range of teams entering into competition. You know, from my experience of racing, sim racing and esports, it's not always easy to find a good competition with a good format and with prize money, $5,000 on the line in this competition today and tomorrow. And so it's a good mix. I really like the range of teams. You've got some like really professional race teams there, and then some more sort of community teams. So it's a good mixture.
Well, first lap time onto the board there. Niels Nyox sets a 2-minute 15.5, already going 1.8 seconds clear of the 6:06. The 179 then sets the next lap time. That is the MG ITG setups car. So there's Luca Lozio's one of the drivers in that wheelhouse as well. So very curious to see how they end up getting on. We know Luca Lozio is a pretty quick driver, and there is a look at Tobias Gronewold, 2:15.5 to beat. The time has already hit 0, so this is your only lap in this session, Arjun. You said that qualifying is quite important. This is where they get to really prove it.
And we are seeing some decent gaps through the field, so I think that emphasizes that this is maybe a combination that, you know, these drivers don't necessarily drive that frequently. And so really Gronewold's trying to just slot into the first couple of rows, which right now gives him a pretty wide threshold with which to work. Does not need to risk too much through these final couple of corners in the final sector. And this long right-hander, especially in the GT4 car, stripped back of downforce from its GT3 counterparts. You've got to be so patient, wait for the car to lean on the mechanical grip that it has before you chink it into these final couple of corners. One more braking zone to go and a short dash to the line.
Really tricky for him. Can Tobias Gronewold beat the 15.5? It's already down, by the way. I didn't even notice, but we do have a new driver on the pole. It's the 121 that's moved their way up. So we'll see if Gronewold can do it. Half a second he is off. So right around where Niels Nyox was. But there is an absolutely cracking lap time that's come in from Polyakov, who's come out absolutely nowhere to take that provisional pole. I said that we were going to see Gronewold and Nyox on the front row, and we're only going to see one of them up there because we've got a new pole sitter. That was a shock.
I said Armentario, didn't I? And the 121 straight to the top and by a considerable margin as well. And so keep that in mind. The next time that we'll go racing with this GT4 machine is the first race tomorrow at Monza, which is, you know, a batshit combo crazy anyway. But it's going to be really interesting to see, Lewis, what that looks like with the downforce being stripped off as well. The slipstream being so important, we know just how much these cars will rocket in a straight line.
Yeah, they're going to be quick. It's basically going to be a pack race. We're going to get a little bit of that as well in here at COTA. It is going to be a little bit tricky going up towards T1. And as they work through the S's section, it is going to be difficult for them to navigate. But all about keeping it clean on those first couple of laps. And again, getting that qualifying onto the board. Mika Hakimi will work into the pit lane. And Liam Walsh will be the final driver to come down into the final corner to set a lap time. Everyone else has already set their position. Him across the line to move up the order. I mean, Steve, there we go. Armentario straight up to pole. That's absolutely crazy. Ahead of the two drivers we were thinking we're going to get the pole.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing with this format. You just never quite know who's practiced which format, which combination. So it really leaves a lot of room for someone to give us a bit of surprise, and I think that's what's happened there.
Crazy.
And I love, right, that you've got to drive 2 different cars. So what else is he going to be fast in, right? If Polyakov is really good in this GT4, he's going to have to do a Porsche Cup car race, maybe a GT3 car race. Where does he show us a speed as well, right?
Exactly. I think this is something I like, the fact that you have to practice different cars. You can't just practice the same thing over and over and over again. But really impressive qualifying from him. I'm looking forward to this race start. COTA is a really interesting first corner, I'm sure you'll agree. It widens up so much, but then pinches up on the apex and on the exit. So I'm sure that we're not going to have everyone get through there cleanly.
Well, let's take a look at the results from qualifying. Armentario then on pole from Remmelton and BS competition, where we were kind of expecting to see Remmelton and BS competition up there, beat by half a second. Big margin back. And you can see some larger margins down the rear of the field, but half a second to have grabbed that pole. The fact that Groenewold and Niox were half a second clear of the next car, then the pack's quite close. That is an absolutely mega lap time. Right at the top of the field. Steve, you're absolutely right about turn 1 is going to be the danger zone, isn't it? I mean, what can we expect at turn 1?
Yeah, I mean, because it's so wide on the way in, it's you're going to get not even 2 abreast or 3, potentially 4 or 5. And it's those people in the middle, they can easily get pinched. And as you move through the corner, it's the people on the outside who get run wide, and they're going to be losing some position. So, yeah, it's one of those where, yes, it's a short, quick race. You want to be gaining positions at the start, but you have to also survive. You have to get through without getting damaged or without crashing.
How many are going to survive, Arjuna? Lap 1. Oh no, not lap 1. Turn 1. How many are we getting through? 28. What's the odds on?
So we got 28. Hopefully that will take to the start. No one starting from pit lane. I'm saying we see 2 around in the first sector. Now, I say first sector because I think there'll be 1 around at turn 1, 1 down through the S's. Because what happens when it funnels in? Someone doesn't want to give. You've got those massive sausage curves that if you go for a launch off, you might as well be a SpaceX rocket going up to outer space, right? So hope to avoid that sort of drama. But, it's going to be a really interesting way to kick things off.
It's an advanced prediction from you. What about you, Steve? What do you expect? Is it an advanced prediction for you, or just straight up 3 or 4 people are going to spin?
I think there's going to be a few people crashing. It is COTA. It's a bit of a mixed qualifying as well. Let's not forget that I don't think everyone necessarily qualified exactly where they should be because of the difficult format with only having, sort of 1 lap to set your time. So I'd expect a couple of people to be facing the wrong way on the exit of turn 1.
Do you know what? I agree. I'm going to plant a number down. I'm feeling positive on the start. I think 2 people are going to spin at turn 1. That's it. I don't think anyone's going to spin into the S's. I think everyone's going to be good going into the S's. But, it's easier said than done. Obviously, it is a rolling start here on ACC, so they've got enough time to kind of get themselves sorted. But they are starting Arjuna just at the penultimate corner, so there's not that much time for them to get themselves ready in their right mindset. What can you do in this time?
Not much, but I think you're really just trying to remember, like you said, it's a championship more than anything else. As almost contact as we get off the line. We'll say, great that I know all the teams tried to get liveries, not all were able to do so. We've got plenty of colourful cars. The black ones will make it a bit more difficult for us up here in the commentary booth.
That is for sure. Well, the first race then of 24, 5 this evening, 19 tomorrow. VCOxLFM Infinity is about to get underway. We've got the Maseratis out here at COTA. And of course, it is Polyakov starting this one from pole position. Armentario on the pole. They've got Remmelton, they've got BS competition directly behind, and of course, 20-odd hungry drivers ready to take victory. Let's see who's going to come out on top. Of course, we've got a long way to wait. Green flag is out, lights are on, and we are racing down to the first corner. Groenewold already trying to cover off the advances of Niels Niox as they head into the first corner. Going deep on the brakes is Armentario, but hits it up to the apex and then sends it down into the first corner. Already a bit of brushing for about 4th position, but everyone's kind of tidy. There goes the spins, 1 and 2. 2 are backwards. I was right on that bit.
I thought I was going to be Mystic Arjuna. No, it's Mystic Lewis instead. Now, though, mostly single file into the S's. It seems like behind Niox in 3rd, there was a moment where a couple thought about going wheel to wheel. This shot will show you, though, a little bit further back. One car takes a shortcut and now goes for a bit of a half spin as well. Dramatic opening sector, but now rise up the track, begin the descent once again. A crucial left-hander coming up, the run on to the back straightaway.
Yeah, you were partially right there, Arjun. There was someone spinning in the S section, a bit of side-by-side. I think that might be the Williams community car trying to make some progress and getting heavily on the brakes. Certainly is. That's the blue and yellow car that you can see. You've got West Competition Racing to the inside, bit of contact and a couple of brushes, trying to get that power down as they head out onto the back stretch here. Look at already Polyakov pulling the entire train over to what is the right-hand side of our camera, left-hand side of the straight, Arjun. They're just trying to break the slipstream of that group behind. This is the proper pack racing we expect from these GT4s.
And I think qualifying kind of told us we'd see a breakaway up front and then the mid-pack where the action is. And so a little bit of a look behind, but no real commitment just outside of the top 10. I get the sneaking suspicion. Polyakov gets 1 second clear. The fight then between Groenewold and Niox builds for second. Fight for the race lead might just be beyond anyone else's stack up mid-part of the top 20.
A bit of a crash there going through the awkward double hairpin sequence. It's probably my least favourite part of this entire circuit, just saying, as they fumble their way through, and some of them fumble the bag. And that is for sure, as we'll see West Competition Racing right on the rear end of Williams. This is the battle for 7th position, but at the front it is still Armatario. 1 lap complete here in the opening race of the evening, and the opening race of the event. Niels Nijholt going on the attack, will try and find a way past Tobias Groenewold, potentially down into turn 1. Let's see what his exit's like. Obviously pulling over the left-hand side. There's that 1 second gap that you were talking about, Arjuna, that Polyakov has pulled over Tobias Groenewold. Look to the inside, comes in from Niels Nijholt. Does not fancy that big dive. It's really tricky to get that dive done at turn 1.
It is so difficult, and I've got a bit of a question for Steve based on his experience in driving these GT4 cars. How close can you comfortably follow traffic or anyone around you without feeling like you've got a lack of downforce? Because of course, like I mentioned earlier, these cars have less downforce than GT3s. It's not to say they don't have aerodynamic performance.
Yeah, it's very true. I think you can actually follow quite closely. You definitely notice it when you're about this distance that Niels is behind. He's going to definitely notice from that kind of distance, but I think given that they don't have a ridiculously high amount of downforce compared to, let's say, the GT3s, it's down the straights where you actually really notice the difference. These cars are so quick in a straight line, and if he can get a good exit, I think from this upcoming hairpin, there might be a chance into the following corner because it's quite a long straight.
Certainly is. Well, they've also got a little bit of company behind from the MG ITJ Setups car, which is a little bit further off the rear end, but at the moment still close enough to go for a couple of moves. Speaking of that, what is happening back here? My goodness, this is down towards outside of the back end of the top 20, and this is absolutely chaos. Arjuna, take it away.
Do you want some 4 wide? Yes, they say everything's bigger in Texas. Almost 1 car off the track. Can we fit it 5 wide? Oh no, we're going to somehow bail, and onto the brakes. Who's going to be bravest of them all? This is outside of the top 20 as well, Lewis. Absolute insanity. 3 wide, 2 rows deep. Somehow it works, even though they scamper off the track.
Yeah, they're all trying to find their way through and all this. My goodness, this is the kind of racing that I want to be a part of, as they're, like you say, 3-4 hours. This is the kind of traffic that I had to work my way through to get ready for this broadcast. My goodness. I wasn't speeding, I was keeping on within the laws. But either way, they're just trying to keep out of each other's way to a certain degree. There's a little bit of bumping and bashing, but nothing too major. I'm liking seeing it. That's a fun way for these drivers to start. Goodness me.
I've got to say there, I'm really... got to say a lot of respect there, because they were very, very close to each other. That could have very easily ended very badly, but fair play to these guys for actually giving each other enough space, despite how many of them there were in that one area.
Well, and Lewis, kind of going back to what I was saying in the pre-show, right? We've cut out the boring middle bit, 20-minute races instead of, 45-minute races that we had for the 3 previous Infinities. We don't need any of that sitting around and waiting to the end. No, let's just let them loose for 20 minutes and see who comes out on top.
Yeah, that's for sure. And they have been a little bit more on the limit, as we'll look at Kirchie here as they work their way through the S section. That's what we want to see. We want to see the little bit more elbows out, a little bit more on the limit, pushing it to the extreme. And to be fair, we've been certainly getting it at the start of this. So it's It's been a lot of fun. This train a little bit dropping off the back. Abeladze, who's the driver ahead, they have dropped off the rear end of the Williams. By the way, we do know that it is the Williams Esports Academy, just to clarify. We do know that it is that, but sometimes we like to joke and call it the VCO, the Williams community car. That's
Hashtag blames Zach Sweeney for that one.
That is a Zach Sweeney moment. Zach Sweeney error that we have copy-pasted into the future. They're just a little bit behind that train, though.
Just a little bit behind the train for the time being. I will say, by the way, great to have that Williams Esports Academy that continues just to try and develop some new drivers. As we saw yesterday, Jaden Munoz make his step up from the Academy into the fully Williams Esports lineup and in the iRacing IndyCar Buckkicker Pro Series. Got the ordering of that one wrong, but whatever, it is what it is. Love these webcams that we see as well. Look at the angle of the steering wheel, very square, at least relative to the steering position for the driver, but yeah, that's the thing, Lewis, everyone's got a position that they're comfortable with.
Well, we've seen Steve's rig, you can't help but have your webcam on it. What do you make of that, Steve? Yeah, seeing someone else's drive and see how aggressive the wheel movement was here.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see the way that different people drive and have their seat set up. He was quite upright and quite aggressive with his steering. I can't quite see this guy's steering. Quite intense look upon his face. Yeah, it's always interesting to see the different ways that people drive, but ultimately I suppose it's just down to whatever you feel comfortable with, and I don't really think there's necessarily a quicker or a better way.
I'm very intense behind the wheel, as everyone knows. Everyone I know knows. Well, I get a little vocal. It's fine, don't worry about it, as we'll see a kick of oversteer coming down through turn one. So easy to do, even the GT4s when they're just putting all that power down. It's rear-wheel drive, as you'd expect, Ardina, and you can kick the rear end out, going out turn one, going out of that double hairpin sequence. Really easy to slide these cars. They're quite catchable.
Catchable? Race cars? I don't know much about that. I'm usually the one pointed in the wrong direction after an incident. And one thing that I guess we should also mention is there is race control. Team at LFM will be monitoring, that start incident, the melee that we had at the end of the back straightaway. If there's anything that's deemed worthy of a penalty, it doesn't just impact potentially in the race, as one driver almost goes straight on. Liam Walsh says see you to the rest of the pack as they make their way up his inside. But it could also affect the race post-race. So, if you see any last corner contact, this is not NASCAR. That will get penalized.
Yeah, indeed. I think there might have been contact between Abeladze and Walsh, by the way. There might have a bump there. I'm not saying that there was, but I'm saying there potentially is. Sometimes a car going straight on is a little bit... well, it's tricky. If you are looking at this thinking, hang on, they're in different liveries, don't worry, that's just an ACC thing. They have not had a livery change middle of the race, but Tobias Grunewald is actually behind the car that we're looking at here, with Niels Nyox directly behind. They do have liveries, we just can't see them at the moment, but of course it is the BS competition driver directly behind the red Velton car. Of course, Arn Notario still holding on a comfortable lead at present.
Yeah, he's been holding that at what? Yeah, he's been kind of at that gap for, pretty much the start of the race. He's built that gap, just kind of holding it there. So he's comfortable. He's not really within overtaking range, unless it's dive bomb of the century. But he's looking comfortable. I think maybe he just needs to keep it at that kind of gap. If it starts getting below a second, it could get uncomfortable with just over or just under 10 minutes left to go.
Do you kind of think, Steve, though, that maybe there might be a bit of extra tyre usually? I know we're only 10 minutes in and it's only a 20-minute race, but still, there is that chance of overheating tyres, of pushing to the limit, especially here in ACC where you can have a few tyre problems, blisters and stuff.
I was thinking that. I think obviously like fuel management and tyre management, absolutely a factor in the race. And sometimes you don't want to necessarily be right up behind someone, using up your tyres, pushing too hard. You kind of just wait off it a little bit, keep yourself a bit of a gap. Just make sure your tyres and your temperatures are good, and then you spring that attack towards the end when they can't give you a reply. So it might not be the worst tactic here from second place, just to wait for the time being.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, look, we know Tobias Grunewald and Niels Nyox, two are probably the most experienced drivers on this platform. Niels Nyox is experienced in sim racing, and I don't know if I can say that live. He's aged, right?
Silver Fox, just give him the nickname.
The Silver Fox, Niels Nyox here, going on the attack, and he is wily as well.
Yeah, get yourself out of that one. I've got to say, the fact that Groenewold's holding just out of drafting range for the most part, Naox is not going to really want to show his move just yet, because there's still 10 minutes left. Every position ultimately could be worth something, and so you just watch the different lines that Naox is trying, making Groenewold uncomfortable if he looks in the mirrors potentially, but ultimately not willing to force the case just yet. I've got to wonder as well, you know, we said Polyakhov's great in a GT4 car. Next up's what? The McLaren 650S. We know Niels is usually in a BMW M4 GT3 car. How much experience does he have in a fire-breathing McLaren? Maybe not as much. I'm sure he's adaptable. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a thing with how those, particularly the GT3s, because it's obviously what ACC is mostly built on, is the GT3 platform. And for Niels Naox, more so, like you say, towards an M4. If it was like the Merc, for example, I think there'd be no problem, because the way the Merc drives, the way the BMW, whilst it's similar, you know, there are differences, but you know, it's still a front-engined GT3 car, whereas the McLaren is obviously not. Mid-engine, different weight distribution, different kind of dynamics, and that can cause its fair share of problems. But Niels not jumping in behind the wheel of that race. Obviously, they can't go back to back, so that's all pretty chill. It'll be Gregor Schill taking on the McLaren, which, to be fair, kind of has the same kind of thing, because Gregor's kind of used to driving the BMWs and such, obviously being part of BS competition. It's a very interesting combo, but we'll have to wait and see. They've not really closed down their race leader over the last couple of laps. It's kind of just hovered pretty much the same, sort of like between 1.3 and 1.7 second gap, I believe.
Yeah, and even going back to the MJITJ Setups crew, which what a team name that is, just throw letters and hope the commentators don't butcher it. They've held relatively constant as well, and you look at the train building onto the back straightaway, it does seem as though now that, you know, maybe fuel is burning off, balance of the car slightly shifting, it's been very equal through the field. Here comes the look though, Naox to the inside at the end of the back straightaway. Yeah, straight down there, and this should be the move. Naox sent it in, a little bit of a run around the outside comes in from Groenewold, rub between the pair of them, but nothing too major, and a kick of oversteer comes in from Groenewold, who's desperate to hang on to second position at the moment. They're bleeding time to our race leader, but Groenewold is really trying to hang on at the moment. Here comes the up and under from Naox, can't quite sneak it down the inside of the exit of the double hairpin sequence, but great racing between the pair of them. Steve, what do you make of that?
Yeah, it was really good battling from Groenewold, to be honest. I thought that was a slam dunk overtake, but he managed to hold it around the outside, and just that part of the track kind of lends itself to running side by side. You can kind of just fight off the aggressor from behind and just keep your position. So that was a good piece of defense there. I think Niels, you know, trying to find the right time to strike. He found the time there, but it's clearly one of these races where these guys are really, really on the limit, and they're kind of struggling to just get that extra 1% over the car in front. And he seemed to have found it there, and he's going to have another look here into turn one.
Can't quite find that move. But the thing is with the turn one braking zone, despite it being obviously you're carrying so much speed into it, because it's uphill, you get the addition of gravity to assist you to slow the car down. But they've built, they've lost now a 2-second gap to our race leader, which means that Armamentaria are almost certain to take first blood here in VCOxLFM Infinity. But we'll have to wait and see. Here's Kirchie, who I was talking about before being behind the Williams Academy car, but has closed back up. Gorka's dropped back here, was running in 7th position earlier on. Artuna, I think some funny business has been going on.
Yeah, I'm expecting some contact, and you know, I was talking about balance of the cars. That's also something that Lewis, I don't think we've touched on so far today. 3 previous VCO Infinities all on iRacing with fixed setups. This one being on ACC, there are no fixed setups available, so the teams will have had the ability, right, to tweak the cars in. And why is that important? Because a 20-minute race, you can be quite aggressive with what you're going to do with tires and all of that stuff, right? So, you know, maybe there are some teams that have really found a way to extract maximum performance from the car. Maybe some others have gone too far over the limit, and you can see Gorka a bit out wide, helped by the fact that Churchy loses the rear end trying to get the power down.
Yeah, which is never ideal, but it is a lovely little pack here, so we could see a couple of moves. Healy might join it. We know that Healy's been pretty experienced in like SRO esports and such. More battling, though, up towards the front of the field. Here comes a look from Niels Naox, gets to the inside, we'll switch it back. We're going to leave it on the high side. That one's not going to work before we get to the triple right-hander. He is looking pretty hungry. There's a kick of oversteer coming out the corner. I think he's just focused on gaining the extra point, because again, these are definitely two teams. Now, we're not trying to rule out Armentario here, because we know they're a quality team, but these are the two teams that we are absolutely expecting to battle for the crown later on tomorrow.
Definitely, it's really important. Sorry, I was just going to say, it's really important, therefore. Every point you gain, they lose. And he's gone up the inside again, almost contact. Really good racing between the two of them. Oh my goodness, more contact on the exit as they cross the line. 4 minutes 10 to go. What's that going to be? 2 more laps? Maybe 3? But Neil's really just ramping up this pressure.
2 laps. You're absolutely right. There's been a spin back here for Liam Walsh, though. There comes the look to the outside as Niels Nyox sends it in. It goes for the up and under, comes down the hill towards turn 2. He's left on the high side, though. Great defence from Gronewold, though, Arjuna. He's really working this car around. He's making it as wide as possible. As Steve said, this is important. The 1 point between them, sure, is only a point. But these are things that can add up. Starting momentum in your camp is crucial.
And I think what we are seeing is that these are two drivers that have battled each other so many times, right? So Gronewold knows exactly where to place his car. Nyox is trying to show his aggression, but definitely doesn't want to force the move and make any contact, right? So trying, but not going over the line just yet. And so this is a promising start to a battle, which hopefully will go on for 24 more races, all building up to that finale at Bathurst in the Ferrari 488 Challenge. Late tomorrow evening to crown our VCOxLFM champion of Infinity.
Yeah, which is very exciting to see. But like I say, this is the battle that we might be expecting all the way through. You never really know how they unfold. And you never know, Armentario might be pulling themselves into the mix and maybe throwing themselves far clear of the two teams behind. Here comes a look to the inside as Niels Nyox for BS Competition will try and get past the Rembrandt eSports car. Out wide goes Gronewold crucially this time, but still they remain side by side into the right-hander. Again, they've been side by side here so many times and Nyox has been unable to forge a move past, and still on this occasion cannot. Now, Steve, in your experience, how can Nyox find a way through here? Because there's only one more lap. He's tried a few times coming down this part of the circuit. It's not worked. Where else can you really try it?
I think turn 1 is going to be the big one because of the nature of that corner, how wide it is. You can just send it up the inside and just park it on the apex. He's going to have to come up with something creative because Gronewold has been really, really good in defence so far.
Not put a single foot wrong. Into the final corner they go to start the final lap. And of course, whilst Polyakov has absolutely checked out into the distance, nearly 4 seconds clear, our eyes and attention is definitely on this battle for second. Is there going to be a look to the inside? Is the defensive move coming in from Tobias Gronewold? A big look to the outside from Niels Nyox, trying to fire one in and go the long way round, but cannot do it at turn 1. That's one opportunity ticked off, Arjuna.
And so now watch, not here through the S's really. This is not where the passing opportunity is going to be. So there's 2 ways to maybe think about this. Is Nyox going to try and throw the move, a surprise move, before they get to the back straightaway into turn 11, try and put Gronewold off and then not give him a chance to fight back? Or will he wait till turn 12 to try again? Remember, he's tried 3 or 4 times to make that move happen. It hasn't worked just yet. Will he try something different? Crest the hill here, dive down to turn 10. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, you can already see that kind of like dart towards the apex, making sure that he's getting over to the inside as Tobias Gronewold covers off that move as there's going to be a wide run here from Niels Nyox. Using a little bit of the curb on the turn in as he tries to fire it through the corner on the throttle really, really early. And let's see if there is going to be a move at the end of this back stretch. The slipstream's going to be in full form. It's now or never, though, isn't it, Arjuna? He has to send it now. It has to be, the move has to be complete. It has to be straight through. It's not easy, though.
It's not going to be simple, and it might take him a couple of switchback attempts. He'll try it. Now look at him slightly offset his line initially. He'll push Gronewold onto the outside, not quite onto the sausage curb. Long way around though for Nyox if he really wants to make this work as they door bang into this tight complex.
Yeah, Gronewold is doing everything right, and like you say, it's not quite bringing in the 179 behind them. There's your race leader who is not had to deal with any pressure in this race. Took a whopping half-second pole position as Armentario looked to take the first of the 28 points throughout the entirety of the run here in the VCOxLFM Infinity. It will be first blood to Armentario, but who's going to finish in second? What an unbelievable drive it's been from Nikolai Polyakov, who comes through the final corner here at COTA and wins the Maserati GT4 and takes first blood, and it will be Gronewold Grunewald just about to hang on to second place from Niels Nyox. But what a fantastic battle between the pair of them. Steve, I mean, seeing that throughout this race, we're going to see that surely throughout the day as well.
I mean, looking at the combinations that we're going to experience later in this competition, there's going to be so much more of that. That was a really good battle. Grunewald, expert defense, really good job to hold off Niels for that long.
Yeah, quality drive. Like I say, to have not made a mistake in it, I know it's only 20 minutes, but to have not made a mistake, it's easier said than done. Let's see though, there's plenty of other races still yet to go on. You've got the number 40 here who's made up a couple of positions as there's already contact going through the final corner and a big send to the inside. I think that's Romana who's just made the move on Neve in the virtual racing team car. So whilst there's that battle for second position that we were hard to take our eyes off, there was plenty of battles up and down the order, and Tom Gorka for the Williams Esports Academy car right the way down the order was running in 7th earlier on, Arjun. That's crazy.
And that car does not look healthy to me. It's clear that it's been through the wars, and only a 20-minute race. We said we cut out the boring middle bit. Well, it probably also meant in a lot of ways for some of these drivers, Steve, that ratcheted up the intensity. 20 minutes of racing, how much contact can you fit in there?
Yeah, especially for that first corner. I mean, I predicted 4 cars would be facing the wrong way. It was only 2, but that's still 2 too many, really. And obviously those guys were pretty much out of the race straight away. 20 minutes isn't really long enough to fight back. But yeah, it was a brilliant race. I think Polyakov, excellent performance. I mean, he got in the lead, just never looked back, and then the guys in 2nd and 3rd started fighting, and that was that. It was quite an assured victory. Hopefully they'll be looking for more of those later on. But I was really impressed by the defense there in 2nd place. Just didn't really give Niels any room anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, look, Grunewald, we know if you've joined any of the SO esports stuff, obviously seeing anything in LFM and SimGrid, etc., like it is always well known that Grunewald is a quality driver. Whilst we know Niels Nyox is obviously an unbelievably talented driver, Grunewald is quality. Has come off a lot of victories in SO esports and or just generally in ACC. And so to see him take 2nd position over Niels Nyox, first one, I think there'll be a little bit more concern about where that 4.5 second gap came from. Maybe those two teams haven't focused enough on this car. Maybe that's where and Ontario have focused a bit more of their attention, not just on lap, but as you were saying, Arjuna, on setup as well.
And I look at the cars, right? We've got the KTM Expo GT2. I mentioned the Ferrari 488 Challenge that will close things off, and the Porsche Cup car. You know, most of these drivers, like you mentioned with Grunewald and SRO Esports, so familiar with GT3s and the nuances of setting those cars up. So, yeah, I'm very excited as we work through these different tracks and the combos that we've got coming up. Who's dialed in the cars the best? I did wonder initially if they were just hanging back and not fighting to try and avoid the breakaway, which I think was kind of the case there, Steve. I think if they had stayed, you know, in line and Nyox had made it a boring race, it might have continued to be a 2-second gap. Yeah,
definitely. I think the gap was consistently about 1.7, 1.3, and then as soon as they started fighting, it went very quickly up to 3 to 4. So I think Niels kind of made the decision, we're not catching, I'm just going to go for 2nd now, and I don't care if we lose 1st place. Just looking at the results now, and obviously on the right hand side you have the point score going down from 28 down to, well, 0 for some of the teams at the bottom there. Look like they DNF'd, so a couple of cars not actually finishing the race. Yeah, next up we've got the very exciting GT3 McLaren 650S at Monza. This one's gonna be chaotic, I think.
I actually agree. I'd predict a higher number backwards at turn 1 in this one than I did in the previous, but you know, that's fine. Like I say, taking a look at that race, taking a look at those results, it is Ontario. They're a little bit higher than where we were expecting. But maybe now, the kind of pressure's on, isn't it? So now it's like, right, okay, we've done it in 1 race. Time to do it in 23 other ones. Let's step it up. Let's see what's going to happen, and so that kind of pressure to repeat again and again and again. Once you've done it for like 3 or 4 races, then it starts to calm down. But these first 5, especially here on this Friday evening, you just never really know what you're going to get.
All I'm going to say is Dylan Becky Shrivens knows exactly where this is going.
Yeah.
3 VCO Infinities, red line of 1 all 3 of them. However, the first one, Urano, going into the penultimate race, were in the driver's seat, leading in points until Dylan Shrivens got involved in an incident, F3 car at Road America, out of turn 5, that he probably didn't need to get involved in. That one incident gave Redline that impetus to leapfrog in points and to control going into the final race. If Armentario can hold this together, Lewis, let's be honest, this is a championship. 24 races strung together in a very short period of time. Anyone could rise to the top, especially after a performance like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing with that first VCO Infinity, of course, was we had the team, the favourites, which was Team Redline, and the fact that Urano were able to come into an event like that and were really able to challenge. And this is the kind of thing, with an event like this as well, Steve, that the teams that we don't typically see maybe battling towards the front. This is not just whether they're going to win or not. You might see them in the top 10 a little bit more. You might see them moving forward a little bit more. This is their time to shine in an event like this, because it is a bit more up and down than what we'd normally see.
Yeah, I think when I was shown the format for this event, I knew immediately there's going to be jeopardy in there. Given the lack of qualifying laps, there's going to be people missing out on the lap, right, or getting a penalty for running wide or something in the penalty, in their qualifying lap. The potential to be starting way further back than you should be. And then, of course, only a 20-minute race, meaning that there's that mentality of I'm going for it on lap 1, meaning, of course, there's going to be crashes, there's going to be collisions. So people aren't going to be finishing necessarily where they ought to be or should be or expect to be. And therefore, yeah, the point scores are going to be a little bit unpredictable.
Sure. For sure. Wow, we get to see Tobias Pfeffer in this one against Gregor Schill, at least. Again, in that combo that I'm mostly focused on, but I don't know. I'm expecting a little bit more elbows out racing in this one, especially that battle for second and third. Whilst it was excellent, it never switched position, did it, Arjuna? Whereas in this one, I'm expecting some big switches.
Yeah, race control. From the racing that we saw, race control had a quiet job in that first race. I can tell you, hasn't been so quiet looking at the race control decisions that have been starting to trickle in. Here's qualifying, though, for, well, race 2 of VCOxLFM Infinity. And as we scroll our way on through, look at the gap in times. Also look at 3 teams with no time on the board. So Skidmark Racing, Absolute Motorsport, Atlas Sim Racing, and the G League Esports crew are going to start at the very back of the 28-car McLaren 650S grid. It will scroll its way back around to the top in a moment to show that Renvelten Esports are on pole. PS Competition down in 10th, Armentario next to them in 11th. Steve, what a change around already in qualifying.
Yeah, massive change around there. And I think we spoke about this earlier, so that consistency through the 24 races, you're going to have to just be up towards the sharp end as often as possible. But yeah, that's a bit of a change around there as we head into the race. So here we are, 28 McLaren 650Ss lined up on the back straight of Monza, ready to go to war. And I'm sure that first corner is going to be a bit of a battle zone.
Oh, the idea of war gets me a little bit worried about what we'll see down into turn 1. But what sort of crimes are you expecting, Lewis? What's the prediction on how many go around this time?
I'm going aggressive. 4. I will say, though, I just want to talk very quickly on that qualifying. Obviously, we saw some drivers out of position. Great qualifying again, though, from the Many Letters team. Well, that's what I'm going to call with them now. Obviously, that's Luca Lozier behind the wheel on the front row. Super stuff. 255 also, 6th place. They actually kind of under radar in the previous race, and they're also up there. Williams Academy, this is now their time to actually throw themselves back into the mix after the disappointing result from the previous race, where they finished right the way down the order, obviously starting up in 3rd with Sopachik. But yes, 4 will go round.
4, okay. Steve, quickly, how about you? How many go around?
I'm going to say 5.
Ooh. So do I go 3? Do I go 6? I'll go 3, just for race control's benefit. But here we go, already with 1 race winner in the books. How does the second race in VCOxLFM Infinity go? We've got 5 races today, then a break, a chance for these teams, some drivers to get some sleep before we kick things back off tomorrow. 19 more races, 5 cars, 5 tracks. and plenty of combos for these drivers to get to grips with. It's Pfeffer on the front row, entering to the starting zone and punching the throttle. Let's get race 2 underway, and it's a great jump from Lozio, who's going to really challenge down into that first chicane at the Reto Filio. 3 wide potentially brewing for 3rd position behind them, but who's going to be last of the late breakers? How many go around? Pfeffer confident on the brakes. Also see the Williams Academy car try and make something happen. Couple of cars over the curbs, but quite remarkably, even though there's some slow cars behind Lewis, 28 scamper through the first chicane and down through Curva Grande.
There's no way it's 0. No way it's 0. My goodness. That, by the way, that was the 501 of Warner, the blue and green car that went straight on down at T1, has been still able to hang on to 4th position, all that, although I think it's just gone straight over at the Roger. There's Gregor Schill. Oh, and there's contact indeed. I don't know who it was that he spun round. It's the 44 of today who's saying ta-da to the top 10.
Oh, that's something that Race Control will take a look at. Now, Schill was trying to cut back into line, wasn't trying to make a move. Oh, what will they deem about that one? Back out of the 2nd Lesmos and running up towards Ascari for the first time of asking. Steve, that's quite remarkable, though, that we got through the first corner safely, and now it means these drivers will go on the offense up towards the fast left-hander.
Yeah, I think that might be the first time ever in history that the first chicane has been done cleanly. They're saving it all up for the rest of the track, though, as, oh my goodness, through Ascari. That car all over the gravel, but he gets back on without really too much fuss. But yeah, the 2nd chicane a lot less clean, shall we say. But these first couple of cars, as you can see, beginning to scamper clear because of all of that fighting behind.
So the Williams Academy car scampering through the gravel almost as see you to the rest of the field, but now fighting just inside of the top 10 as we end the opening lap. Pfeffer from Lozio, 1 and 2, breaking clear up front. It's the fight for 3rd, where the green and blue entry of Warner, who cut the curb at the start of the opening lap, now defends from Thomas in the 79 from behind, and the Wild Things Racing entry, 3 wide brewing once again behind them as that Williams Academy car gives up the position for the time being. A couple more cars kick over the bollards. What is a braking zone?
Indeed, the 255 competition car went straight over it. Obviously, Thomas went straight over it. To be fair, Thomas probably went straight over it and went, look, you did that on me at T1. I'll do it lap 2, mate. Don't worry, as we've got side by side behind that. That's the 255 competition car going side by side here, as we'll see 255 on the inside there in the more grey and then white. Obviously, we see BSR here at the moment with the 33 directly behind of West Competition Racing. BS Competition sat at the rear of this just at 9th though. Not made too much progress with Gregor Schill.
So we did see the 255 finish inside the top 10 in race 1, but they got a 10-second penalty, which should drop them, I think, to the edge of the top 20. So again, a reminder, Race Control could be significant. Gregor Schill gets a rocket of a launch off Lesmo 2, already past 1. Can he pass the BSR machine as well? 401 Jinx to the inside, covers off a move. The Zebra's not having it, though. Schill to the inside, can't make it 2 positions in the space of 1 straight, though. Settles for the time being.
The thing is, though, you've got to wonder about that time penalty. Speaking of time penalties, will Gregor Schill get one after that incident with the 44 of today, obviously going down into the Rogier? Is there a potential penalty looming over the BS competition? I don't know if you remember the incident, Steve. I know you can recall. Obviously, contact into the Rogier is never ideal, and when you're high up in the championship and you're expecting to compete for the championship, it's not really anything you can afford.
Yeah, it's one of those. I mean, there's going to be a lot of those incidents because of the high-speed nature of the track going into the very tight chicanes. There's going to be lots of cars going in side by side, and then one of the cars bails out and cuts across the circuit. It's going to be a common occurrence, I think. And I've got to say, stewards, good luck with this race, because this one is going to be one of those where it's going to be quite busy, I'd imagine.
I mean, Steve, if you want another job, we can give you some race control duties as well.
Yeah, no thanks.
No thanks.
I'd rather not. But no, they're going to be very busy today with this one. I mean, Monza just always produces that kind of stuff, doesn't it? Where, I mean, this chicane here, I mean, everyone's in single file for the time being. But later on, I'm sure, when those overtakes start coming in, there's only really room for kind of single file. You know, you can go through there side by side, but it's not easy at all. And normally one of you is going to kind of get pushed wide in most cases.
Love, by the way, that we have a lot more liveries out on display for these McLaren 650s. Going to be very curious to see how the KTM Expo GT2s look next time we go racing at Bathurst, which is coming up in about 25 minutes time. Lewis McLeod believes that's the best track in the world. I do have to ask you, Steve, what's your favorite track in the world?
That's a really good question. For me, it's actually a really easy answer. It's the Nürburgring Nordschleife.
Okay.
It's not on the list today, but it is just such a brilliant circuit. Obviously, so it's a bit of a roller coaster, really long track, lots of challenging corners, very fast circuit as well. And I've been lucky enough to race it this year and last. But yeah, brilliant circuit, and always love racing there.
You gained yourself a fan in Arjuna.
What more do I need to say, Lewis?
Yeah, right. No, it's fine. No, it's still Bathurst. It's fine. Well, Nürburgring is a solid second, but it's still Bathurst.
We'll have a fight here in the commentary booth coming up very soon. Bathurst versus the Nordschleife. Let us know in chat. Gregor Schill chinks to the inside. Got to say, though, that he's being frustrated by Blue Steel Racing right now, who have been a couple of laps now holding Gregor Schill at bay, Lewis, which, you know, for a car that's potentially got the race stewards looking into previous discretions, definitely doesn't want to kick anything else off. Speaking of, kicking off behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has kicked off far too much, though, was... there is a spin for Absolute, a little bit of contact on the rear end, and they absolutely went round. So I was just a little bit tricky down there. We kind of saw this back in COTA, that sort of the battle around 20th back was crazy, it was wild, it was very exciting. But I say this car is both wider and this track is narrower than COTA, so it doubles up to create some intensity down there at T1.
Yeah,
this is.
I was going to say, you know what? When you've got grids this big, it's really good to see a 28-car grid, by the way. But when you've got grids this big, those guys down towards the back, let's say 20th backwards, it almost becomes a case of, like, there's 8 of us here, but only one of us is going to get out alive. And you just got to hope that you're the one that kind of does. And a lot of the time, well, most of them aren't going to be the one who gets out unscathed. So it can get quite desperate fighting towards the back of the pack.
It's hilarious you say that, because it's what happens even at the top level esports, right? Is you'll have a field of 30 drivers. You'll know that there's going to be some up front, some towards the back, and those at the back know stay out of trouble. You might get some decent points. Focus on the fight for third then, just a little bit, to see Wild Things Racing under pressure. Also, just on the edge of the top 10, you got the likes of the Gladius Competitions crew trying to make some headway, closing to the back of Big Brain Racing. Love that team name, by the way. Is it going to be a Big Brain defense and shimmy to the inside? Doesn't really cover off any move, and here comes the 201 trying to make something happen.
Yeah, it's going to be a big look as Polovchuk tries to go for something for Gladius, but then there's some more movement happening up ahead, as there is the Big Brain Racing car trying to make a move around the outside, though, of the 997 that is the Alpha Racing team, who's just able to cover it off going round Curva Grande, and Rhino Sullivan will try and look to the outside, heading down to the Roger. Whoa, Jinx back to the inside, that's a proper send.
That's, is it Big Brain or not?
Goodness.
Well, one car goes airborne. Big Brain Racing say thank you very much and scamper away from the scene of the incident, but that's what the second chicane at Monza really delivers, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, that's just classic Monza, really. It's kind of what I was touching upon earlier, where, well, there's a bunch of us here. One of us is going to survive. Lots of us won't. And, well, Big Brain Racing with the dive bomb of the century, I think. That was a really big send. Let's see what the stewards make of it. But to me, it looked kind of clean, but also at the same time incredibly dirty. So it'd be really interesting to see what the stewards make of it.
Ooh, and left side of the screen, it's popped up. 15-second time penalty for BS Plus competition. Steve, what do you make of that?
Yeah, that's not going to help their championship. As I touched upon earlier, you just want to be consistent. Over 24 races, you just need to finish up as high as possible, minimize your mistakes, minimize your penalties. That is not going to be helpful to their cause at all.
Lewis, do you agree? Yes or no? I'm throwing you under the bus here.
Do you know what, at least from what I saw of it, which was only one look briefly, I actually do agree. I think that the contact was instigated from Gregor Schill's point of view on the rear end of today's. I think it's fair and deserved, as much as it is going to be tough. It's going to cost them a few positions. It's not going to be the end of the world. It's kind of one of those ones of like, it might be one of the things that decides this competition when it comes to the end, but it won't be the single thing that decides this competition when it comes to the end. There will be a whole multitude of things over the next day and a bit, as there's contact there ahead. Ooh, that was a bit awkward.
This might help the case for Gregor Schill. Can he make the move on the Blue Steel Racing machine and try and build up a bit more of a gap? No. He still is frustrated and held behind for the time being after the 255 competition machine scampered first over the curb and now behind. That's the West Competition Racing machine piloted by Sebastian Apostel that runs through the grass. What track limits here at Monza? Drivers are taking that more as a suggestion. That's going to drop BS to 20th or so. Keep that in mind in terms of points. Fight for third. Wild Things Racing holding on the entry to Ascari, but it's a great exit here from Peak Performance. Could they make the move down into Parabolica, Lewis?
Yeah, but they're being joined fairly soon by Sobchik, who's got some decent pace. Obviously had some issues in the early stages of the race, and Sobchik's rejoining this fight. Obviously went straight on at Ascari a bit earlier on, side by side, getting into the final corner. And Thomas has gone round the outside. Didn't really cover that inside very well at all, to be perfectly honest, as they head back out onto the start-finish straight. At least these two you can pick apart from the crowd. You know, bright pink, blue and green. Take it.
Always love a livery that makes it nice and easy for the commentators. Now, the middle of the track less bumpy here at Monza. Important when you're trying to slam onto the anchors and slow down from going 250 plus kilometers an hour. Oh, peak performance, peak braking performance there. Wild Things Racing tried the switchback, but just run into the rear bumper of the McLaren, and a move made for the final step on the podium. Steve, that was executed perfectly.
Yeah, it's a really good move. Sometimes it takes a couple of corners to get an overtake done. He kind of threw up the inside going into Parabolica, opened up the space, engineered the space, and then completed the move. I think he lifted off the brake going into the corner. Just thought, you know what, there's no chance you're going to brake later than me. I'm going to brake later than you. If you brake late, I'll just release the brake and go later. And yeah, it took him a couple of corners to get it done, but a really good move.
Haven't mentioned much about first or second. They've each now separated themselves from the rest of the chasing pack. Lozio 3 seconds off of Pfeffer, leading the race for Ren Velton, and especially knowing, Lewis, what's happened to BS in this race with that penalty. I know it's very early on, very, very early on, but it's the type of momentum Ren Velton will be hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, also, we've not spoken about the other part of that, which is the team that won the previous round. 10th place at the moment, obviously will be promoted to 9th. Will Armentario hit drop behind the wheel at the moment for that one. But this is big for Ren Velton to... basically, the goal for Ren Velton, for BS competition, for Armentario, obviously, and to be perfectly honest, let's do them the favour and chuck the MG ITJ setups into the mix as well. That's going to be really hard to get right again and again and again. But chuck those into it as well, because yeah, they're running consistently. The big bit is about leaving Friday without too large of a gap to the team ahead. And obviously, if you are the leader, you want as big of a gap as possible going into tomorrow. Yes, it's only 5 races today, but that sets up all the confidence for tomorrow. I mean, Steve, you know, from like endurance racing and stuff, that confidence going into like the next day is critical.
I completely agree. I think if you can lay down a gauntlet nice and early within any championship to give yourself a big break, a big buffer in terms of points, it just it really demoralizes the competition. And we see that, you know, most years recently with Max Verstappen in F1, just lays down a gauntlet early in the season and it becomes really difficult to try to reel him in. Although this year a little bit might be a bit easier compared to last year, but yeah, all these teams early on, Ren Velton doing a really good job so far of just bringing the consistency in for today's races.
And we'll see each car once today, each track once to... Now, wait.
There was someone there, wasn't there?
Yeah, okay, good. Someone else saw that. That was not just me hallucinating.
There was definitely a car there off in the gravel.
Okay, well, we'll send our dispatchers now to figure out who that was, pull them from the incident, but is that the 255 machine? Because no, it's popped back up on the timing screen. I love a jump scare in a sim race. It's why I pay to go to the theaters and watch my sim races there.
Yeah, that was a weird one. There was absolutely 100% a car off on the left-hand side. Through that chicane, I'm sure we'll see who that was as they come around again, but that was very strange.
I'm going to assume it must have been a back marker of some description, because no one's dropped down on the timing tower from up ahead. So at least that one might be ticked off and chalked up as just being a bit of a drama for one of those, which is still sad to see. But alas, I think it might be something on the 997 or the 70, based on where they are on the circuit. It would be the 997.
it's at least good to see that they're all back out onto track and trying to salvage some sort of result, even if they were tangled up in some early drama. Lap 1 relatively clean, yes, doesn't mean subsequent laps followed that trend. Now, Samantha Tan Racing Esports around the outside potentially here. That would be a bold move to make, but can they make it stick on the 49? Answer is no. It's a 4-car tandem that slingshots off the first chicane as G League Esports in that 49 hold on to their position. And again, if you're just joining us, KTM Expo GT2s at Bathurst coming up next. Paul Ricard Ferrari 488 Challenge, and then Porsche Cup cars at Barcelona to finish off our 5 different tracks and cars that we'll see today. Steve, what's your favorite of the cars? I don't know if we've asked you that one yet, because they're all quite unique, even though they're all still GT sports cars.
Yeah, they're all very different, actually. You know what? I think the Porsche Cup car is the one that I'd be looking at. That's the one I probably like the most. Having direct experience of racing against them this year at the Nürburgring. Very, very fast cars, almost on par with the GT3s. Very peculiar to drive, the Porsche with the rear engine, of course. But yeah, the Porsche Cup cars are great. I just want to give a shout out. I forgot about this, but whilst we're at Monza in McLaren's, James Baldwin, who's a very accomplished ACC player, he's actually racing. Someone goes off there. He's actually racing this weekend in the 720S at Monza. So we wish him all the best.
Yeah, it's a good point, and a late call-up for him as well, as a little bit of an issue through Ascari for, I believe it might be the 99. No, it's
74.
It's big brain. Oh no, small brain through Ascari.
Oh, oops. That's not ideal. Yeah, I didn't realise that you were driving this race, did you?
Oh, I did say that I'm not great at catching cars, did I? You know, there's someone else that's actually racing at Monza this weekend with that particular livery, kind of. Phil Dinez is going to be racing for BS Chicato in GT World Challenge up against Baldwin in the McLaren. So that's going to be quite interesting to see some sim racers out there in the real world, Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, look, we always like seeing... and the thing is, it's kind of like obviously, you know, these sim drivers that we're so used to seeing in sim racing and stuff, almost feel like they're our own, even though plenty of them do like their own bits of real world racing anyway. It's always good to see. I mean, I am kind of sure that James Baldwin probably won't know that Phil Des is like big time sim racer on like iRacing and stuff, because their worlds don't really collide, because like sim racing is like this whole, like, got ACC, we've got iRacing, we've got RF2 or whatever. And we've got our own little separated communities. Obviously, James is more on like the ACC side of things, and Dinez is over on iRacing. But still, it's going to be great for us to see at least.
Yeah, that is a good point. Phil also was rode to Indy at one point in the US, drove some open wheel cars, so great to see that sim racing, much like with James, giving him opportunities in the real world. Long may that continue. Wild Things Racing dropped back from peak performance in the 501. Now can the Williams Academy car put the pressure on as we start what should be penultimate lap of this race, stretched out at the very front of the field. And Lewis, let's be honest, for a typical Monza race, there hasn't been too much mayhem. That's the type of sends we're expecting. How did he get that car slowed down in time?
Yeah, that's quality braking, but like I say, battling kind of a brewing here, because we're on the penultimate lap of the race. We will have one more after this. Warner's absolutely checked out from this battle as Thomas is rejoining the fight going into Curva Grande, right on the rear end of Sobchik, who's obviously, as I say, just got through into 4th position, takes the defensive line going into the Roger. Yeah, bit of a brush between the pair of them.
Ooh, but on the exit, I've got to say, credit there to Thomas, able to avoid running into the oncoming blue and yellow entry as it ran its way through the regular racing line, and able to avoid causing any more drama. Steve, well handled from both sides.
Really good racing, really. I mean, firstly, that overtake into turn 1. Deadly on the brakes, really, really good, confident braking there. And then they gave each other just about enough respect and space for that second chicane, so good battling between the two of them.
I've only seen one other penalty outside of BS competition trickle down, and that's to the G League Esports team. That might actually, though, be for race 1. Not quite sure if race control still just trickling through some of those first race reports and finalizing some of the decisions there. One thing, though, that's pretty final as we get ready to head on to the final lap of this one. Tobias Pfeffer, 6 seconds clear at the front of the field. Lucas Lozio is being hunted down, if anything, for second spot right now by the creme de la course 501 crew, not just peak performance, creme de la course as well. Lewis, this is the kind of statement, the kind of drive you expected from Ren Velten.
Yeah, this is exactly what we expected, just running away with things. By the way, can we just have a quick shout out to Race Control? Just very, very quickly, because the thing is, unlike a normal endurance race where things are chaotic rather, right at the start of the race, and then they calm down, and so they've got enough time to like catch up and get through stuff. This is sprint racing constantly, which means that you know that every half an hour at the moment, and even unlike previous Infinities, every half an hour you're going to get a list of reports. You know that it's going to happen every lap one, every half an hour, you're getting a load of reports. It's like, great. That is hard for them to keep on top of. That's a lot of lap ones in a short space of time.
And I mean, we do see a bit of the bollards everywhere, so it's been some mayhem up and down through the field. It's not like there's been none. Now, Tobias Pfeffer has made his bed, hasn't he? So, Steve, that is a driver that has prepared correctly for sim racing by making his bed and then getting into the sim rig.
I mean, you got to start your day right. Get out of bed, tidy the bed, and then you're on for, well, just quite simply a perfect performance here at Monza. So, I mean, top sim racing tips for everyone here. Just prepare your bed and you're going to deliver some amazing performances. This has been, well, a stellar drive, really. Never looked back from the start of the race, and he's more than 6 seconds in the lead.
Controlled, dominated. What more can you say about Tobias Pfeffer here in race 2 of VCOLFM Infinity? Make it 2 for 2 winners, 2 different teams rising to the top. We've got a long way to go. Could it be Ren Velten crowned victorious this win at Monza, their first of the event? Behind, the fights will continue to the line. The ITJ and CDC battle is going to somewhat peter out in the closing stages. A drag race to the line, Wild Things Racing just going to lose out, I think, to 255. The margin, 31 thousandths of a second, Lewis.
That was big. That was a big one from Schegerberger. But as we'll see, Naga Racing's been off the road. Like I say, it's all kicking off on this final lap. But as they all try and find their way round, here's the G League. Carl's got a 5 second time penalty, of course. Once everyone's across the line, then the 15 seconds will get applied. I think it's only going to drop him down to about 13th or 14th position for Gregor Schill, so it's going to relinquish a few points, but nothing too major.
It's damage minimized, I guess, in many ways. After getting the penalty, you will see the final couple of cars roll around to the line. I think a couple of cars ended up dropping down 2-3 laps down and still finishing the race, so salvaging what they can. But your race 2 winners, VCOLFM Infinity, sees Ren Velten grab their first victory of the event, and Steve, dominant fashion as well. What are we going to now be in for as we get ready to head over to Bathurst, Lewis's favorite track in the world?
Well, I mean, Bathurst in a GT2 is going to be really exciting. The GT2 cars, a lot of power, not as much downforce as what we've just seen in the GT3s. And then, of course, all of those walls on a mountain. Perfect combination for some carnage. I mean, Monza normally is fairly chaotic, but that one was actually pretty respectful for the most part. So it'd be really interesting to see how these guys negotiate the mountain.
Was it a VCO event where I screamed Arca brakes at Bathurst? was that was Esports Racing World Cup, wasn't it? Around here. I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah,
you're really testing my memory there, aren't you?
Was. No, I just remember there was a massive crash going up towards McPhillamy, and absolutely no one used their brakes, and I just screamed Arca brakes on broadcast. Sorry about that. Love Bathurst. It's going to be obviously a cracking race. I've not commented on the GT2s yet either, and I know the drivers quite like these cars as well. Steve, have you driven them much on ACC?
I haven't. I have actually driven a real GT2. Lucky enough to drive the Porsche GT2 around Portimao early this year, and wow, what an experience. Quite loose on the rear end. You've got to be quite careful. Over 700 horsepower, but less downforce than the GT3. So interesting experience, I must say. And I think racing them closely is harder than it would be in the GT3. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I think this will be a great race. Negotiating the mountain is hard enough on its own, but then with 27 others trying to do their utmost to beat you, it's going to be an interesting one.
And I'm thinking about 700 horsepower down through, the dipper, for example, right? When you bottom out and you just find the car, squirreling around on you. Those are when you're going to find yourself really extracting performance from the car. And, you know, Lewis, you know, setups, experience, that's when we'll see some of the teams that have done more racing in the car figure things out a little bit quicker.
Yeah, certainly so, of course. Before that, we'll take a look at the results from the previous race. Of course, that excellent victory from Red Melton, which will put them to the top of the points, with obviously second place in the previous race, first in this one. They will now take over the lead. Armamentario a little bit further down. You can see they will end up in 9th position. BS Competition only ended up down in 12th place, despite that time penalty. And here are the points, I guess, still provisional, so the race control still looking at certain bits. So Red Melton 55 points, MGITJ setups 52 points, Armamentario on 48, so they're 7 off of the lead. But Steve, I mean, the gap that was built there by Gregor Schill to make that 15-second time penalty, it only dropped them down to 12 to 30, that kind of period. That's big for that team. That is big.
Yeah, definitely. I think given the point structure, 1 point for every position, and the 15-second penalty, he just had to go as quickly as possible to build as much of a gap to as many people as possible. He did really well, I think, to nullify the effect of that penalty. And I think the gap, therefore, from BS Competition up to Ren Velton, not as big as it could have been after that. Only 2 races gone, though. Ren Velton looking really comfortable so far. But I think this next race, this will be a really, really big test. So let's see if they can continue that streak.
One thing that, you know, Lewis, I'm kind of wondering as well, right, is we said you can't do back-to-back races. Does that mean, though, that you might have all 5 drivers show up here on Friday and do a race? Or will you have just 2 drivers, you know, switch back and forth here on Friday, have some other drivers who can't necessarily be a part of things, right? So there's so many different things to think about as we work our way through the combos of cars, tracks, and the drivers that will be competing against each other as well. That it's going to be really, there's so many stories that we can work through, and I'm looking forward to trying to read some of the messages in chat as they flow on through to see where everyone's excited to see some of the racing that's been happening.
Well, I mean, look, there's a couple of different methodologies on that. BS Competition, they're using Niels Niox again in this race. So they're using Niels, then Gregor, then Niels, then Arthur Camera will be in the car, and then Niels will be back in the car. So this is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. He's obviously will already tick off then the requirement of driving 2 different cars. So that's always a good sign that BS Competition ticked that off with at least one of their drivers. Fair play. Whereas you look down the road at our points leaders at Ren Belton, obviously Tobias Grunewald started, Tobias Pfeffer started. Let's call them all Tobias. It's fine. Tobias Burnt. Let's lay on Burnt. We'll be doing this race. Then I think it'll be jumping over to Bastian Richter, and I think Grunewald might do the final race. But they're kind of jumping up and down. It's only Hoban who is the one who is yet to take that seat. Bit dark. I wasn't expecting this.
I'm glad I'm not the lead commentator for this one, Lewis. Good luck figuring out who's who.
Thanks. Okay, now bearing in mind this, we've played the game a little bit before. Let's keep this one up. Steve, how many cars we're going to see backwards, either down at T1 or up towards Griffins?
My number has been increasing every race. Given that we are doing this race in the dark, it could be very high. I mean, we could be reaching to double figures. But no, I hope we can all get through that first corner nice and clean. Only seconds now until the beginning of this race. This one's good. This one's just ramped up by the fact that we've just loaded into the race and it's dark. What do we think about that, Arjuna?
Oh, I'm a bit worried. Of course, they do start the Bathurst 12 hours in the real world in nighttime condition and race into the sunrise. But this is always unpredictable, right? Harder to spot your references. I'm going to go with 2 cars spinning out of turn 1. And Lewis, you're going to get to shout ARCA brakes again.
I'm not shouting ARCA brakes, and no one's spinning. This is going to be a clean start despite the power of these cars. Niels Niox will be starting it though from pole position. The 255 competition car though starting alongside them, so that's great for Minar. We'll head down though into that first corner and we'll see how things open up here on the mountain. Down into the first turn is Niels Niox on the inside for BS Competition in that first corner. Let's see if everyone's able to work their way through. I think it's Wild Things Racing with a little bit of contact there, making it 3 wide in the background. Everyone's tidy through T1 as we begin the rise. Here comes 255 competition, I think, going on the attack to try and take over the race lead as we head up towards Griffins. Look to the inside, but it should be Niels Niox hanging on as we begin our ascent up the mountain.
And this is where you've got to get single filed out of in towards the cutting, out of that turn 2 corner. If you're not single file here, it spells trouble. But that's also where drivers think there's opportunity. Top 10 decide, you know what, let's not risk it right now. It's not worth it at any point. And even though we all survived turn 1, can we survive the rise over the the mountain and then the descent down. Once you get through the elbow, Lewis, you'll release a sigh of relief and say, okay, we've survived it once. Now we've got, what, 18 more minutes still left to go.
Yeah, indeed, but you can't, like, it's a sprint race. It's, you know, it is only 20 minutes long. You can't afford to be leaving much space to the barriers, so everyone's going to be chucking it over the top as close to the barriers. We head into the dipper. Look at how much they were sliding, how much they were really chucking it in. This is down to the Forest elbow now, with Niels Nyox hanging on to the front. They pop into screen now as we begin our run down Conrod and, of course, towards the chase. There's already a 3/10 margin, but let's see what this slipstream is like. I mean, I can't imagine the slipstream would be that large in these cars, but you just never really know. I think they're going to race quite well. Maybe what Steve will know on that one, but we're going to get some great battling, that's for sure.
I mean, this is normally part of the track where I expect a lot of overtakes to happen. Long straight, leading onto it is quite quick. It goes on forever, and then you've got this very big, fast, fearsome kink into the big braking zone. I'd expect this is going to be where a lot of the overtakes are going to happen, but on this opening lap, I think, given the circumstances of this car around this track at night, I think a lot of these guys are just, you know what, let's just settle in, let's survive, and let's just try to bring the points home. I think that's a good mentality to have in this race.
For sure, for sure. Now, obviously, there's someone who's just been off in the background. I didn't see who that was. Might have been the Williams Esports Academy car of Felix Santafidzwa Hacker. I think it might have been another couple of offs in the background as they overcook T1 just a touch. We begin that rise up mountain straight once more, but again, try and pick these drivers apart. It's not easy as we are very much in the darkness, but I say a couple of drivers went off at T1. That was probably expected more on lap 1 than on lap 2.
Commentator's not in the dark though, apparently. Lewis did pick out that it was that Williams Academy car wide through turn 1, and save was as good as the recognition from Lewis that that was the car at hand. We're on board though with the 255 machine, and this will be a great perspective to ride down over the crest here and just see what the drivers are going through, how close and how precise with the walls that they have to get, and how little room and margin for error that there truly is. There's that's not a margin for error. There we go,
It happened.
Yeah, now clearly someone's been using some marker brakes. If you don't know what that means, is basically it's not using the brakes at all. They ain't got them. Yeah, that was a little bit sketchy. Riding back on board with Menard as we head down the hill. Yeah, I'm just going to say, picking out that, I don't call myself two-time VCS, we're going to commentate this debate for no reason, Arjuna. I did it first. Into the chase they go, and 255 competition keeping very close. Rampart is not too far back though. And of course, they'll be pretty. I wonder if Rembrandt they aren't going to be desperate now. They're probably pretty happy with third rate. You know, just grabbing more points.
Would you really want to fight for 2 more points at this stage? I mean, Steve, maybe you could give us a perspective from behind the helmet, if you would. But like, I'm sitting here going 2 points. We've just won the previous race. BS outside of the top 10. I wouldn't throw it away for a second or a first.
I have 2 thoughts on this. First one is, if I was in the car, I'd think, you know what, we're in the lead of the championship, I'm in third, bring home the points, play it safe, don't do anything stupid. On the other hand, just do it for the content. We've got hundreds of people watching this. Go for it, go for the win. Show us some amazing overtakes.
A person with a fair few subscribers straight on the let's do it for the content.
Yeah, anything for content, that's more important than bringing home the championship, of course.
I respect that. I very much respect that.
Lewis, do you remember when certain Unicorns of Love driver decided the content was more important than winning?
I know, I was around here as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was exciting. Which one was it? No.
That's EWC. Is it 2021?
It was 2022. It was
okay. 22.
It was the final day. It was against James Baldwin, and well, it was against Veloce. It was around here. It was the final corner. It was the Mitchie Tauscher. Bingo, got it. It was Tauscher who spun at the final corner, which meant we had to go to another race. It was very exciting.
Exciting for us, maybe not so exciting for the team though. So just a lesson we learnt here in VCO competition in the past. Don't bind a traction control off button unless you are 100% sure you're only going to press it when you really need to.
I mean, is that really what happened though? Is it really what happened though?
Allegedly.
It's one of those things that we'll never know. Like Nico Rosberg chucking it down the escape road in 2014 at Monaco. You'll just never know what actually happened, and that's fine. Whatever, you just got to deal with it. As we look at the battle towards the back end of the top 10 at the moment, though, the gap has been growing for the race lead. Niox has been setting a pretty solid one over this one. Built the gap now to nearly a second. Final sector, though, for the 255 was slightly quicker, which you kind of expect because of the slipstream. You know, they're closing that gap back in, but Niox is looking strong right now.
Yeah, I've just been watching that gap between the top two. It was down to less than 3/10 at one point. And I think Minar might have made a mistake somewhere on the, maybe on the elbow, on the lead out to the Conrod straight. Because that gap did open up quite suddenly. I'm just trying to predict how much, or let's say how close you have to be behind the car in front going onto that back straight to really get the slipstream and then an overtake into chicane. I think it's maybe at least within quarter of a second or 2/10, but he hasn't quite got that close yet.
But these cars, Steve, obviously they've not got as much downforce as a GT3, but you'd still expect they're going to kick up a decent amount of dirty air going up and over the top here, where following close is almost impossible, right?
Yeah, this is the difficult thing that they have to manage throughout this race. Obviously, you have to be close onto those straights at the end of the lap, but it's through the middle of the lap where you have to kind of keep close, and it's just really not easy. It's hard enough to drive this car in these conditions as it is, but when you have the dirty air added in, it's just you're really risking a lot when you're pushing the car right up to the walls. And so it's a fine balance to strike, and you know, we've discussed this before. Do they really want to risk 1 point for one more position, or is it worth just staying where they are? So that's the decision they're going to have to be making right now.
I'm not going to lie, lads. After this broadcast, I'm pretty sure I'm loading up my wheel and I'm taking a GT2 around Bathurst in the night. I'm liking the look of this. It looks exciting. Let's go with that as we'll take a look again back down the rear end of the top 10, of course. You've got the 501, which was running fairly strong. Like I say, the creme de la course CDC car that's currently running in that 9th position. Feeling a fair amount of pressure, though, at the moment from the R&L Raw car at the moment. Yeah, a little bit of weapon. That's, I'm assuming, triple screens from what I'm seeing here.
Those are some wraparound triple screens as well, like the curved variety. So, you know, fully ensconced in the experience. And I guess that's one other thing that we'll see a good variety of across the 28 teams and drivers that fill up those teams as well. The different setups. Some will be, you know, fully tricked out sim rigs like this. Others, you know, might just be on at a desk with a Logitech G27 and an office chair, and, you know, might still be very capable of winning races. You look at some of the drivers that we've seen in VCO competitions before. It doesn't always need to be the fanciest equipment, although I think that's the one thing where drivers will always say it helps you be more consistent, doesn't it, Steve? When you have load cell pedals and a steering wheel that can give you a bit more input into what's happening with the car, it just helps you to be a bit more consistent lap on lap on lap.
I do agree with that. I think so. I think this setup here, he's got a very, as you say, like a wraparound monitor. Won't necessarily make you faster, but I think in terms of, let's say, racecraft and wheel-to-wheel combat, you can see what's going on side by side, and so there's benefit to that. There's definitely strengths and weaknesses to different setups, but it is really good to see that different drivers can do well. You know, with let's say a cheaper setup, you don't necessarily have to go all out with the most expensive setup. You can still succeed with, let's say, a Logitech G29, something like that. You don't have to go all out.
Remember Yartine competing at the highest level of sim racing with Logitech equipment like that. As we'll see the move to the inside. Oh, skid mark, probably causing a couple of skid marks there. My goodness, that was a big move for 7th place, getting past the 121. So that was our race winners from race 1. Armamentario dropping back now into 8th position. Paul working their way through in that skid mark car as we look at the Williams Esports Academy car that, of course, qualified quite well. Dropped down a little order courtesy of an issue down at T1.
Turn 1, not the ideal line being taken a couple of laps ago. Again, a very different sort of a look at the sim rig. And is that a towel on the... So he's like me. He sweats a lot, and he just needs to make sure that his sim seat doesn't become unusable sooner rather than later. Gotcha. I feel the pain, Felix.
Felix runs hot. Felix runs hot. I remember meeting him at Spa last year. Actually, nice guy, but clearly not feeling like a nice guy right now. He wants to go out on the attack. No nice guys out there on the racetrack. Gotta drop that one. Is an interesting decision though, just to have a towel there and then. But then again, at least it's close and convenient. So sometimes you've got to wipe the sweat from the brow, and you do sweat a lot behind the wheel at this level of competition.
No, but you see, that's where I used to sometimes have like a hand towel next to me, where I just reach down and dab at my forehead once in a while. I wouldn't have like
Oh, he's might.
I mean, maybe that's why he needs the towel for all the moments where he's picking up gravel and stuff.
Yeah, my goodness, those are some scary. I mean, look, the car like this. The speed like this, and also with being at night time, any moment at the top of the mountain is going to be very scary, right, Steve?
I think we've all had it, right, where you're driving at the top of the mountain. I mean, I can't remember all the corner names, but any of them really, where you go a little bit wide on that grass where he went, and it's a hearty mouth moment. I don't blame him for having that towel. I think I would be doing the same for this kind of combo. There's been times when I've been wearing my smartwatch, and the amount of calories I've been burning in a sim racing session, it's certainly not 0. It's quite a lot higher than that. So yeah, these guys definitely working hard.
There's Mia Rose working her way up the order. I mean, I will say there was one thing that came out of ESLR1 last year, which was data that Jamie Fluke posted after winning a final. And it was under pressure very late on in that final as well. It was at Road Atlanta. And the heart rate he got up to, it was genuine. I think it was about like 170, 180 heart rate. And all you're doing is sitting there and driving. And anyone who tells me that it's because of it's because of the physicality of driving, and I'm like, you've clearly never been in a high-end race, because it's not the physicality. It's nothing to do with the turning the wheel and stuff, because we can all drive in practice and the heart rate will never go above 80, right?
I can actually attest to this. It's actually a really weird difference, because in real life racing I almost think that the heart rate is actually a bit lower than in sim racing. Sim racing, it feels weird because you're sat there, it's less physical than real life obviously, and you can't quite flush out the adrenaline. Obviously with real life you have the physicality to kind of get rid of it, but I think when you're sat there there's so much more pressure and you can't really get rid of it. So sometimes I think sim racing is a bit more mentally taxing. There can be a more heart rate as well. So yeah, sim racing definitely comes with its unique set of problems and difficulties.
Do you know, you're the second person to have told me that. Dennis Lind told me that. So basically the very same thing a long time ago. Like, your heart rate doesn't get as high in the car, but like I say, in sim racing, I think it's just that level of focus required, because again, like, you're so not attached to it in that sense. You've got to focus that little bit hard. But yeah, 180, that's some proper exercise. That is, from just being sat there.
And you were saying, right, ESLR won last year. Well, remember this year when Esports World Cup, BMW, they flew out people from Formula Medicine to actually they had radio systems inside the arena so that they were tracking the heart rates, and they had EEGs and all sorts of medical stuff that's much smarter than I'm capable of understanding, trying to track and figure out where those drivers were struggling in the mental, physical side of things. So yeah, it's going to be interesting how that develops, I guess, moving forward. One thing that we also learned from the Esports World Cup, if you're struggling, just knock your head against your steering wheel a little bit, draw a little bit of blood. Kevin Siggy went on to win the Drivers' Championship with a couple of bandages on his head as well. But
do you know the thing about the heart rate? The one thing that we did learn was that Kaiki Oliveira is clearly a psycho, because I was there with Dara Thacker, and we were watching Kaika's heart rate during one of the races, and he made contact with someone and his heart rate went down. I was like, fair play, Chief. Fair play. Love Kaiki. He's such a good man. But no, I think that's like I say, it's an interesting thing that we're kind of focusing a little bit more on that health of drivers, as we're seeing once again the Williams Esports Academy car right on the rear end of the Creme de la Course car at the moment cannot find a way through. It's not even the Creme de la Course car, that's one ahead.
That was a great camera angle looking backwards. Just shows you how much pressure this guy is withstanding from behind. I must say, also, just looking at the front of the order, Niels at the front, strong mentality here. Yeah. He has not put a foot wrong. I hope to not put the commentator curse on him, but still in the lead, this many laps in, and Minar in second has been within a second the entirety of this race. So lots of pressure. Niels not making that mistake as we go on board, actually, with Minar here in second place. He's got to be frustrated at this point because, you know, I think he's waiting for that mistake to come, and it just isn't.
Our junior and I have commentated with each other enough that he already knows what I'm about to talk about.
I was about to jump in to say,
I know.
Steve, why did you bring that up? Lewis doesn't believe in the commentator's curse.
There's no such thing as the commentator's curse. Goodness me, we've commentated far too much together. I was like, it's on the tip of both of our tongues. Yeah, there's no such thing as a commentator's curse. Don't worry. Say it as you will. If he's going to crash, that's of his own accord. He's not got a broadcast on. It's fine. The RNL Raw cars dropped back behind the Williams Esports Academy car. So Felix has worked his way up now into 10th position. So at least there is that one ticked off. Can't curse that one. It's fine.
Niels is going very well, is what I mean to say. And well, let's see if he can continue this for a couple more laps.
And for the record, I do believe in the commentator's curse. So.
No, you don't.
No, I do. I 100% do.
No, you don't. Because you're not crazy, surely.
Oh no, I am definitely crazy.
You can't believe in this stuff.
I'm a sim racing commentator. I am therefore the definition of crazy.
Hold on, here we go. Here's a crazy one for you. Niels Nyox is driving really well at the moment. Whoa, he's going to crash. That's not how it works.
Someone DDoS his internet, please. Come on, help us out here.
If he wins this race, it doesn't exist.
No, that's not how it works.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. We've got one more lap to deal with after this. I'm so sorry, Steve. I think
one of my favourite things in the world to do is wind Lewis up on a broadcast, Steve. So feel free to jump in as well.
I'll be sure to curse a few more people then before the end of the stream. And I must say, before we approach the final lap of this one, the 19 further races will be on the VCO channel tomorrow. That is linked in my description. If you guys want to check that out, please do check it out. There's going to be lots more exciting races to come.
Certainly so. Well, we've got one final lap of this race, and I'm pretty sure the excitement is going to get turned up to 11. Minar has been right on the rear end of Niels Nyox basically all the way through, and whilst you've got the Rem Velton car sat 2.5 seconds back, they'll be very happy with third place. Points leaders at the moment, they'll continue to lead the points at the moment here in VCOLFM Infinity. But who is going to win the third race? We've obviously had victory from Armentario, we've had victory from Van Velten. It seems pretty much set on, Arjuna, that we are going to have 3 different teams winning the first 3 races.
I think here it's, for one, I agree with you there, but this is going to come down to whether Niels makes a mistake. And let's be honest, Niels is one of the most experienced on Assetto Corsa Competizione. He's literally written the guide for commentators who are trying to jump in and understand some of the nuances. So unless the pressure builds and something bizarre happens, maybe his dog comes in and distracts him for some crazy reason, he's just got to avoid making a mistake. And I think this for BS Competition, after the result from last race, exactly what they need to get the momentum right back on the right track and build them up for the next 2 races to finish off the day.
Yeah, indeed. Into the final bit of the mountain section. This is where you're making sure that you need to nail Forest Elbow, right? Well, that's all you're thinking about. Once you've come through the dipper, all you're thinking about is nailing Forest Elbow and making sure that you're having the run on Conrad to keep them clear behind. At the moment, the gap's 0.6 of a second. I think he's got fast at the right time here.
Yeah, definitely. I think Niels, I mean, where do we start with this performance? Just from start to finish, has not put a foot wrong at all, despite pressure, consistently throughout the race. Really, really good. Race 3 here for BS Competition. Disappointing, perhaps, second race. Their first race was good, finishing third. But this one is going to go 2 better than that, finishing first. Great race for Niels.
Yeah, 12th place in the previous one. Now up to the top step. Niels Nyox takes victory here in his second race in VCOLFM Infinity. Niels Nyox takes the top step ahead of the 255 competition car of Minar. And again, that'll be a very healthy victory. Again, it proved the commentator's curse is rubbish, because I said that he's doing really well, and obviously that means we're going to crash. Yeah, got Armentario here crossing the line in stealth mode. No lights on that car.
Is that possible? On a set of Corsa, can you damage your headlights?
I don't know if you can damage them. You can turn them off, though.
Okay.
But I don't know. I've not seen that before. Either way, not the only battling done. We've got the Absolute Motorsport Aslith car about to try and make a move. Goes to the outside as we head our way down into the chase. There's no way that's making a circuit.
And after it's been a struggle for Absolute Motorsport to open up the first 3 races, struggles continue. It's going to be 18th position for them down the back for Senatore. But that just goes to show, Lewis, what the chase was meant to do. They added that corner to bring some FIA racing here. A prime passing opportunity if you're brave. Don't be too brave, though. The grass is there as well.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, that was pretty sketchy. But do you know what? It was fun. We've had some fun in that race, and we weren't expecting it to be at night time, and yet here we were. I think one thing I didn't notice this, but the MG ITJ setups car was disqualified. What happened to them?
Oh.
What even happened? That's an Arjuna question. He's going to go and investigate with race control. Maybe it was something to do with the lights, to be fair. But the BS competition team are victorious. So, yeah, Steve, there we go. 3 races, 3 different winners. Can we make it 5 from 5 on this Friday?
That'd be really interesting to see. But yeah, really good racing so far. 3 different winners, as you say. Kind of shows you that the format of the event is promoting lots of different teams coming to the fore. So that was really good. I think the next one, again, another really exciting race coming up. Is it the 488 next, or is it the Porsche Cup car next?
It's Ferrari next. Yeah.
It's Ferrari next. So another exciting race. I mean, they're all exciting combinations. I think they're all good. But that one, yeah, Nils, just start to finish, did not look troubled at all. Really, really consistent. And I'm sure we'll see the points in just a moment's time, but BS competition will just get that a little bit closer.
It's Paul Ricard next, by the way, which, given that we had the surprise of night for Bathurst, can we turn the sprinklers on at Paul Ricard and get some rain going? That would be great. Here's a look at those results, as Steve mentioned, though, with BS Plus grabbing 28 very valuable and much needed points at this stage of the game. Blue Steel Racing, good charge from them after a struggle in qualifying. They're plus 11 to get up to 14th. Not the biggest movers, though, because Alpha Racing Team plus 12 just behind them. Yeah, still not entirely sure, if I'm honest, what happened to the MJ ITJ setups team. Say that one 5 times fast. But Lewis, I think that's a bit of a surprise. We kind of expected them to potentially be one to watch in terms of potential race victories over the course of the day.
What do you mean, MG ITJ setups? It rolls off the tongue.
4 more times.
Yeah, sorry, MG ITJ. Oh, see, no, it is. Yeah, second one. Instantly failed. That's fine. That's one for Steve to try after the broadcast. Obviously, we don't know what happened. There must have been something that obviously either from race control, it could have been straight up in game. Like I say, if you've not got your lights on, maybe it's just binned them off. Maybe there was an incident and they'd lost their lights. Obviously, we did see that large crash going up towards McPhillamy, and they might have been involved in that, where there could have been an incident. Don't fully know.
Championship points scrolling through as well. Still a couple trying to fire themselves off, but it is Ren Velton, 55 and 52. I'm not sure if these are quite updated yet. I would have thought BS competition might be a little bit higher up there, but still not. There you go. There's the update.
Nice.
Yeah, 81 points. Still 10 points to the good. That's a healthy margin so far. You know, especially when you start getting towards the latter stage of this competition, to know how many points you can afford to lose, that is a really nice position, luxurious position to be in. So Ren Welton, really good start for them.
Like I say, they're obviously 10 points clear. The goal for them will be over the next 2 races. To be honest, it will just be to kind of hover it around that, right? If it grows, courtesy of finishing 3rd, 4th, that kind of position, like that's great. But I'm almost, if I'm in their camp, I'm not desperate for the victories. I'm just, let's make sure that we don't blow that lead. Let's not drop down and not have a bad qualifying. Make sure that we're always qualifying in the top 5 on the podium and stuff, and keeping that gap consistent, keeping everyone at arm's length. The moment that you kind of push that for the pole lap, right, where you're really on the limit of the car and you're exceeding track limits, and then you get dropped into the mid pack, suddenly that 10-point lead has gone. And it's kind of one of those ones of like, I'd want to make sure that I'm keeping that comfortable, so that if we have an issue, or rather when we have an issue tomorrow, because it will happen, then you've got the gap at that point, making sure you have that gap.
And I like that, Steve. The point system makes it quite clear, right? You talked about knowing what the team has to do going into the latter portion of tomorrow, but every point is a position. So right now, 10-point difference means Ren Velton would just have to finish 10 positions in front as well. So kind of just, or rather behind at worst to hold on. So keeps things clear. And as we take a look at qualifying, Ren Velton, once again, fast and going to start from the very front. On the outside of the front row is going to be the MJ ITJ Setups crew, before you then get to Creme de la Course alongside of the Williams Academy crew. BS competition, Lewis, they're down in 9th.
Yeah, indeed, and not ideal for BS. Obviously, after Camera taking over that car, but this is a circuit you can overtake at. Like I say, Armentari up there, Williams Esports Academy up there, but it is really BS competition. You've struggled a little bit. I don't want to be that guy, but it does seem as though at the moment, there is a certain Niels Narks that might have to do some proper heavy lifting in that car. That said, they've got a solid lineup once we get Philippa Bakida in the car tomorrow. I mean, she's absolutely rapid, so who knows? It's kind of a very up and down start for BS right now.
What are we expecting then at Paul Ricard, Steve, as we get ready, knowing how this championship is set up?
Yeah, it's going to be an intriguing one. I mean, Paul Ricard, from my experience of ever driving this circuit, it's a really interesting circuit, given the excessive runoff. I think there's going to be sort of shoulder barges and door banging, people going wide, cutting chicanes. Hopefully not too much of that, but there's definitely room for some collisions and hopefully not some people dropping down the order too much. But Ren Velton for pole position, we're looking just to scamper clear. Ideally for them, that's what they're going to be trying to do.
And so we haven't turned the sprinklers on. Instead, we've turned the sun off. And another night race lies ahead of these drivers. There's a chance that there will be a couple more of the races that will be at night, but the drivers will all be aware of it. And Lewis, we do know that there are some drivers that prefer racing at night and some that prefer not to race at night. So, you know, when you're picking your driver lineups, choosing who does what race, something that has to surely come to your mind as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I always used to think as a driver, I actually quite liked night race because I remember I said this before when I did Le Mans in the Virtual Endurance Championship back in 2016. I did all my practice in the night, and then one time I did a lap in day, and I crashed going through the exit of the Porsche curves because all my references are different. Because when you're driving at night, you've got like this tunnel vision. You don't see anything else, you don't focus on anything else. It's just you and the track, and there's something quite alluring about that. Some drivers like it, some drivers don't. It can be quite distracting with all the headlights and stuff, especially if someone's right behind you, but yeah, some drivers are pretty handy at dealing with that. Bastian Richter will probably one that'll be quite comfortable with dealing with it. We saw Warner go really nicely though back in Monza. I wonder if there might be the same kind of thing coming from that 501.
It's become the norm for us to talk about how much chaos do we expect at Turn 1 here. Turn 1, rather fast chicane here at Paul Ricard. What are you expecting, Steve, as we get ready to go for race 4 of VCOLFM Infinity?
Well, I must say that the drivers so far have been very respectful for the majority, for the most part, in the races so far. I think we are seeing drivers trying to be careful and just play the longer game and make sure they stay in the race. But you know, through the mid pack and the back pack, it's not easy to avoid everyone. So there's going to be a couple of cars going wide, I'd imagine.
So here we go. Let's punch the throttle once again. No lights except the headlights to pave the way. Bastian Richter will lead us up towards Turn 1, already clear of ITJ behind. And now as the battles brew into the braking zone, looks like relatively clean for the most part inside of the top 10. Wonder what happened to the likes of Arthur Camera in that BS competition car as he tries to make some inroads early in this 20-minute affair. Of course, Visceral Esports watch the 44 with 3 wide in front of them. Not quite sure if they all survived. One car rejoins. Arthur Camera says thank you very much and grabs a position as they get ready to work onto the long back straightaway.
Well, look at this side-by-side up ahead between Sobchak and Warner as they head their way through this long right-hander and get ready to head out onto the Mistral straight as they chuck it through the left-hander. Warner's gone out wide, I do believe, a little bit ahead of all of this and has cleared Sobchak as well. So, like I say, there is that battling that's happening up there. We're looking at Arthur Camera here, who's towards the back end of the top 10. And now we run drone cam down the Mistral straight as we go a little bit of 3 wide. It's exactly what we're expecting down here, down towards the likes of Scene and such.
The drone had its afterburners turned up for just a little bit. Now, this is where we mentioned track limits could be a bit of a talking point. Who's going to be brave? No one really decided it's worth risking it right now. I think they're all a bit concerned about the fact that both Red Velton and the ITJ machine starting to build their advantage up front and could make it a prancing horse breakaway to then deprive anyone else of a chance to fight for the lead. They're stacked up behind the Creme de la Course machine into this final sector. But Steve, pretty tidy opening lap considered, and now these top two going to try and settle into the rhythm once more.
Can I just say how fast that drone was? I reckon that drone could win this race if it stays consistent throughout these laps. But yeah, that drone was going, what, 160 mile an hour down that straight, I think these cars are going, so pretty quick there. But yeah, nice clean start there for Ren Velton in the lead. That's exactly what they wanted. He was kind of unchallenged into the first corner. Got a nice run and just ticking off the boxes. It's whenever you start on pole position, it's kind of like just ticking off a checklist. Jesus, I couldn't quite get that one out. But yeah,
hungry now for chicken.
trying to go into turn one unchallenged and then just pulling clear. That's what you want to do, and that's what they've done.
Nice move from Visceral there.
No chance that drone would win this race, but I've seen Mike Yow's driving. I don't have pilot skills, so definitely no chance. Obviously, the pilot of this broadcast, and no worries. Got a big thank you from him away here. Sorry, mate. Anyway, the battling continues. I just had to drop that in. Sorry, Andy.
So when you don't hear Lewis anymore, you just know who's responsible, as he's slowly being disconnected from the broadcast. Gladius competitions now. Which way do they go? Long way around, potentially. Up towards the fast right-hander it's seen. We're not going to go four wide, surely. There's a block being thrown, and if your camera, you got to be careful. Already being investigated by race control previously in the event. Don't want to risk anything more, and as they sweep now into this final sector, the long looping right-hander still to come. There comes the send from camera, grabs 3 for the price of 1. A hip check behind him. What a move from BS Competition.
I mean, that was aggressive from Arthur Camera. I mean, it might be a little bit too far, but waited for his opportunity and then absolutely pounced, going down into the right-hand hairpin. I mean, see, that was a bold move. Maybe a little bit too far from Arthur Camera, but I quite like the elbows out style there.
Yeah, I mean, 20-minute races, if you want to make any progress, you've got to do it quickly. And I'm just thinking, you know, when you see your main competition up the top of the leaderboard, maybe that does put a bit of pressure on you to think, well, look, you know, we need to kind of gain some positions here because our main competitor is leading the race. So maybe, you know, you're seeing that, he's just thinking, right, we got to go for the send button and get some overtakes done.
Ooh, that sent one of the drivers out wide. I think it might have been 255 competition. Might have opened the door for the Wild Things racing car, but these short 20-minute races have definitely been action-packed. Haven't seen too much from race control, at least in our Discord channels. That's not to say there hasn't been plenty of things that they have been trying to flick their way through. Lewis gave them a shout-out. I'll give them another shout-out, because just look at there, a car bouncing over the curbs. Something else that will surely be headed their direction. But Ren Velton clear once again onto the back straightaway. It's a 1-second advantage they've got at the front of the field, and it's the battle for 5th on back, Lewis, where really the intensity is building.
Yeah, I think that might have been, by the way, Dom Healy that skipped over. We've got the battle between G-League and Visceral. G-League at the moment, the ones that we're looking at, hanging on to 5th position. You can see Visceral there going around the outside as we get to the end of the Mistral straight. That one actually should be quite easy, and that shows that slipstream and how big it is. There's Arthur Camera just ahead of this grouping. Big move to the inside, coming in from Armamentario. Ooh, that's a big bold send.
Just about works, though. The race 1 winners, of course, really started things off with a bang, with Polyakov breaking away in the GT4 machine. Been a bit more difficult for them since then, but able to slow it down. And Steve, it's always interesting at Paul Ricard. They've got so many different configurations that can be run. We run the long blast down the Mistral straight in towards Scene. What do you think about that? What does it do from a driver's perspective when you're getting ready to steel yourself for the right-hander?
Yeah, I definitely think that, I mean, that right-hander at the end of that straight it's going to be a scary corner, because I think you can run it pretty much flat out. And so, you know, when you're side by side, it's a bit of a scary one. But I wasn't quite sure what configuration you guys were going to be using here, so I was kind of thinking in my head the F1 layout with the chicane in the middle. But I think this one with the straight as it is, with no chicane in the middle, is probably better overall for overtaking. These guys want to get a good run off of this sort of first sector and onto that back straight, because I think that's where you can get the easiest overtake done.
Would be interesting using that slightly shorter straight and having the chicane. Might add another passing zone, but we have seen already 3-4 wide. The longer straight gives us the chance to build up a bit more speed, and while again still seeing the top 3 or 4 stretch their legs after Arthur Camara's daring pass. I think that's the best way to describe it into turn 11 a couple of laps ago. This mid-pack somewhat settling down just a bit more. And so Lewis, one thing that we know is there's battles up and down through the field. Let's check in with the fight for 17.
Yeah, indeed, and I think it's the skid mark car going to the outside. Actually, no, sorry, it's the virtual racing team car going to the outside at the moment. Cannot find the way past, though. Not immediately, anyway, as they'll try and find the way past the Blue Steel Racing team. Here's a look. Lights all off, very much in the zone. As a bit of side-by-side up ahead as we'll head through. Oh, and a bit of contact as well. Yeesh.
All just building, and I've got to say, if I look at that webcam, I assume that he's racing from somewhere where it's already late into the night, so maybe tomorrow's races can be a slightly more favorable time of day for him. The switchback attempted, not really on though, and so as I'm sure pressure building from behind as well, because this is a 4-way fight that's heading into the final couple of corners. We're closing in on half race distance. And next time by, we'll have finished officially 10 minutes or so of this race, and you can see it really out wide. Door opens, but still no way to slide the 11 on through.
It was the Naga Racing team there that was just trying to get down the inside of, I think it was the F1 meme team, whatever they're called, F1 memes racing team. As here comes the big switch, just kind of trying to get to the outside. Naga Racing team defending at the moment, and there comes a big send to the inside. Oh, it's going to end in a crash, surely.
No, because behind, opportunities presented, and I think Blue Steel Racing saying thank you very much will have taken a position away there from some of the cars they were all fighting with. Steve, I'm not always been the biggest fan of Paul Ricard. These drivers are showing exactly why it can put on a show.
Yeah, I was going to say that overtake there into turn 1, I was certain someone was going to meet the Shadow Realm there. Didn't quite happen. So yeah, I mean, not just this race, but all the races so far, I think people have been showing each other enough respect. But Paul Ricard, not always everyone's favourite circuit, but I think this race proving, just look at that shot. All the cars in a line, lots of close racing, and actually, given I think the nature of the circuit, there's actually quite a lot of overtaking opportunities. So I'm sure there'll be more overtakes to come with 11 minutes still to go.
It took until race 4 for us to have a mention of the Shadow Realm. Fortunately, we haven't had too many incidents, with the exception, Lewis, of what happened at Bathurst, that we didn't quite see all of the chaos. We saw the aftermath, though, and potentially a lack of arc brakes, or rather, plenty of arc brakes, lack of braking potential. Firefly Esports, a little bit wiggly, though, through the final sector.
Yeah, I think they're battling with Armamentario here in that 121, so it's not ideal for Armamentario in this race. They won the opening one, and they've now opened the door with that big send in the penultimate corner. Tobias Scher's gone out wide, and they're also being joined in the fight by the 201, the Gladius Competitions car, that's now trying to find its way into the scene, and 255 Competition also in that fight. It was a big send from Armamentario, just to have really forced that door open at the penultimate. I will say about the circuit, I absolutely despise Paul Ricard, and I will that on broadcast. However, Darren McCormack has always told me that it's one of the best circuits to race at. He actually loves this place because it races so well, at least here on ACC, because of that. Okay.
Never mind that. Oh, how did we avoid a follow-up bit of contact there as the 42 spins around? Skid marks are plenty, yes, but the skid mark Esports Ferrari emerges relatively unscathed through all of that. Lewis, I mean, that just had to throw the pun in there as well.
Had to chuck them in. Look, they're called skid mark for a reason. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And, wow, they were. Let's just say they were sliding across the track in that one.
What's the best team name, Steve, that you've ever seen, real or virtual?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm going to have to come back to you on that one. There's been some good ones out there. Yeah.
Big brain racing's not bad in this field.
I do like that, especially when they have a small brain moment like they did at Ascari Chicane a few races ago. But then, you know, when you pull off an amazing overtake, it kind of solidifies your name. But yeah, there's been some fun names out there.
There was a team in a Christmas quiz that I was taking part in, and they called themselves "You're Taking the Piastri," which I thought was excellent. That's a good name. But no, there's some good ones out here. Big Brain's probably up there on this grid though.
That's not a bad one. We had one that was entered for the iRacing Indy 6 Hours last week, which was, did you know team names have a 64 character limit, which is long.
Like that.
It's a good thing they weren't on the broadcast. It wouldn't have shown up on the tower, unfortunately. Just would have read as one squiggle of text, you know what I mean?
About the Aurora flag-to-flag artifacts, Calamity, powered by whatever we called that team name. That was a
long one, wasn't it?
That was a long one, and that was only done to break the TV graphics as well. We succeeded. God damn.
Yeah, that is what Lewis tries to do, to break broadcasts here, there, and everywhere. 8 minutes left to go. Still a pretty comfortable race lead for Bastian Richter. It's 2.6 seconds that he enjoys over the MJ ITJ Setups crew, and then the gap behind, you could tell that I had to go and read that team name. Gap to Creme de la Course has opened up as well, so we were watching the fight basically for 5th, 6th, 7th at one point. It's now 6th or so, where they're all stacked up behind. Liam Page, Samantha Tan Racing Esports, they've been in the wars today. They push a couple of cars out wide, and they rejoin none the wiser Skidmark Esports in there as well.
Again, it's just chaos at various points. I mean, part of this will be Knight, part of this will be Paul Ricard, and part of this will just be towards the back end of the field as everyone's trying to work their way back up towards the Firefly car as they continue their fight with Armamentario. They're about for 7th position. Tobias Scher trying to get past Rybakov. At the moment, gets straight down the inside. It's a lovely move.
Yeah,
It's going to come straight back at him. That was a really good turn overtake, yeah. I was going to say, with reference to that earlier melee, as these guys continue overtaking each other, I think just with the excessive run-off tarmac around this track, I think that's kind of what makes it such a divisive place. But it does change the dynamic of racing, I think. Given you've got all that space on the outside beyond the white line, I think there's definitely liberties taken with that, and you can just feel free to run people wide. I think people don't really think too much about running their competitors beyond the white line as they would, let's say, Monaco or another circuit. But so far it's been, for the most part, pretty good.
It's almost like track limits have their place in racing to make sure that we can enforce staying beyond within the bounds of a track without taking too many liberties. We don't need walls everywhere. As much fun as Bathurst is, it's expensive to wreck a race car at Bathurst. A little less expensive to have a crash here at Paul Ricard and to be off into the gravel. That's almost straight on for Gladius competitions, but 255 competition not going to be able to take advantage of that one. They'll try and square the car up, slowly roll themselves onto the power, and then sweep back onto this long Mistral straight, use the slipstream to the best of their ability, duck out of line as late as possible, and make the move into the flying right-hander in front of them as well. Armamentario on the charge, trying to make the move on G-League Esports.
Yeah, indeed. This will be an important one for them because they're starting to lose ground, as is BS competition on that team at the top, Renvelton, looking for a second victory in this VCOxLFM Infinity, and they're looking very strong for it. Here comes the inside look as they head into the right hander. They're still going to be side by side by the time they get down into this hairpin. It's Armamentario up ahead. There comes the look to the inside. They're going to try the up and under once more. They actually drive to the back. And Armamentario, they're going to spin the Firefly car around. Somehow, Firefly don't spin round. That was excellent car control from Scher.
But if you're being smart here, Armamentario might want to give the position back up to Firefly. Don't think that's an option, because we're 3 wide behind for a moment. And I think Gladius competition got the best of that as they now sequence up towards the final sector. What a save, though, from the 255 initially and the Firefly car to avoid running into each other and making that situation worse, Steve.
Yeah, that was a mega save. It's not always easy to see your competition, obviously. If you can kind of see that the contact's coming, then you can kind of brace yourself for it. But given that it's night time, I don't know if he would have expected that contact. So I must say, yeah, very well held, and he's still in the race.
And so hoping that the next race is maybe back in the daylight conditions if you're some of these drivers, gives you a little bit more ability to spot your reference marks. I think that's a couple of things that we've been seeing from some of the mistakes. Drivers just not necessarily adapting to these changing conditions in terms of the light as best as they would have, because Lewis, so much of sim racing, right, is muscle memory, and when you get thrown into these different situations, the best drivers are the ones that can adapt.
Yeah, I mean, I will say though, one thing that you shouldn't really rely on muscle memory is that at least here in ACC, when you're racing in night, the conditions are cooler. The car drives differently, right? It is different. There is more grip out there. There's more. Obviously, it's the track temperature's cooler, but then you've got certain other ways, like the way it slides, the way the car dances around the circuit. It is different than how it is in the day, as it is in real life as well, of course. And in that, if you're purely relying on muscle memory, well, you're going to crash, which is why I crash. That's the main reason.
This track a little bit easier to pass though than at Barcelona, where we're going next, so it could be an opportunity for some of these drivers to try and make some moves before they head to a race where qualifying might just be that little bit more important creme de la course. Is that a mistake from them, as suddenly Armentario joined the fun?
Where have they come from? They've come from right the way back.
Must have made a mistake on this lap and in this sector as well.
Yeah, because their gap, they were in third on the tower, and they have dropped right the way back down now into the battle for, well, they're in sixth position now. There comes Sobchik across the line in third position. Then it's Visceral, and then it's the G League car. And then suddenly, something must have happened to them. I don't know if the car's damaged. Certainly, if there's a spin or something in that vein, then the tyres aren't going to be in a good spot as he overdrives T1 as well.
Yeah, it's not looking entirely comfortable, that's for sure. And so suddenly on the defense, I don't think he was that close to the Williams Esports Academy number 77, who's inherited the podium spot, but now looking in the rear view mirror, that is for sure. There's, what, 4 cars queued up behind that will be trying to make some sort of a move here. We'll get an indication as to whether there is a bit of a damage impact here, but the other thing to keep in mind is the fact that we mentioned open setup. Some teams may have added a bit more downforce than some of the others, maybe a bit more vulnerable in a straight line, and so slingshot onto the straight, run your way for almost a kilometer, pedal to the metal, go, 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 go. Who pops out of line? Who tries to make a move?
Oh, I've never hated you for saying that.
You love the pedal to the metal, go, 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 go. Hi, George, if you're listening.
I'm clipping that and sending it straight to George Morgan. Here comes the look to the inside, though, while Armentario making the move. That car, there's something not right with it.
Oh, goodness me.
Here we go, take a look at the replay, and ooh, Steve, it's a moment by themselves.
Yeah, I mean, this is just something that can happen. You can just, on the curb, and he's just got loose on that curb, and just got a massive moment of oversteer into the wall, and yeah, just not what you want in this competition. You want to be nice and consistent. But on your note about the setups, it's really interesting. Obviously, ACC open setup, you can have that question in your mind. Do you set up your car for ultimate pace, or do you make it easier to overtake? And this is the question you have to be asking going into all of these races. You know, if you qualify well, you can sort of set up for just general pace, but if you're towards the back, you need to be overtaking. You might need a bit more acceleration or top speed. So there's a lot of different things to consider in this racing.
This is chaos.
This is wild, and this is the last lap of the race, isn't it?
Yep, certainly is. And like I say, Warner, with that spin, I mean, clearly the tyres have come back in all right. That donk on the barrier won't have helped the front end, but I'm sure it's got some suspension damage or something from that, but it's clearly not too bad. Did someone go straight on there behind all this, or was that just my eye thanks to the lights?
No, they did.
It's not my eyes. I'm an old man, but I'm not that blind.
And you can pick out things pretty quickly, it turns out. Now, there have been a couple of penalties. I saw that the Skidmark Racing crew, they got a 5-second penalty headed their way. Not sure if there's anything else that race control's taking a look at, but I think one thing's for sure. Up front, 3-second gap behind. Ren Velton continuing just to extend their margin in terms of points. And one more race left on this first day of competition in VCOxLFM Infinity. Lewis, it's looking very promising for the Ren Velton number 71.
They're going to be extending that gap, and they're going to be extending it big time. So Ren Welton are really taking control on Friday. But I will say this can change very, very quickly. You know, one race, few mistakes, suddenly it can all be thrown straight out the window.
It would be interesting, that's for sure, if we had a fight all the way to end of race 24. That's not what Ren Velten will want. They will become the first repeat winners in VCOxLFM Infinity here in 2024. Bastian Richter doesn't even care. There's still a lot of work to be done, and his biggest fans in the background celebrating along with him. Kremdel, of course, have got a drive-through on the final lap. That's something that will impact these final couple of corners. Who will go aggressive, drag race to the line? Who gets the best position here?
Yeah, indeed. Now, I don't think that Warner's going to serve that one. So he has come into the pit lane, but it's going to get translated into a 30-second time penalty anyway, so he's going to be finishing down towards the back. It was always going to get changed to 30 seconds when he got to the line anyway. But yeah, that was pretty chaotic across the line. There's some tight gaps. I'm pretty sure there might have been some frustrated drivers. But Warner's going to be dropping right the way down and probably scoring a very, very small amount of points.
Almost to the point where I think he might drop even... No, he'll slot in front of Arthur Camera. Disaster in many ways for BS here in the fourth race of the day after the initial couple of races. Weren't quite sure where things were going, but first repeat winner of the day, it's Ren Velten Esports, Steve, that will have a big smile. One more race left here on Friday. It's time to break out the Porsche Cup car and make our way to Barcelona.
Yeah, really good performance there from Bastian Richter. Walked away from that. Walked away with that one quite easily. Ren Velten, in a really good position here. Like you say, though, it's going to be really hard to do all 24 races without an incident. Commentator curse. Something's got to go wrong at some point, surely. But, I'm not saying that. Hopefully it doesn't happen for them. But next up we have the Porsche 992 Cup car at Catalunya. That'll be a fun combination, and in a moment we'll see the points total so far. I mean, they're just adding them up at the moment, but Ren Velten were 10 points ahead. It's going to be what is it going to be now? More than 15 or 20, so they're looking comfortable at the time being.
I'm just going to say that's not the commentator's curse. That is a fact. Something is going to go wrong for these teams. That's just no doubt. There is no doubt. Although the fact that you did freeze when you said commentator's curse is maybe whoa spooky. That's fine. Like you say, things are unfolding very nicely for Ren Velten right now. They are in control of this. And I know we've only had 4 races of 24. Of course, 19 are tomorrow. Let's be honest. A night's sleep can be positive, but it can also be negative. They'll probably want to be like, oh, can't we do like another 10 races tonight to get most of that out of the way?
And here they are. Let's take a look at the results then of that race. Obviously, Ren Velten finishing in first place, picking up the big 28 points. Williams Esports Academy there in third, and is it MGITJ? My goodness, now it's my turn to say it. Finishing second. They had a good couple of results earlier, but I think the big losers, obviously, BS Competition. Look at them, down 19 positions to 28th. So that is awful for their championship cause.
It's not good. It's not good to have a hit like that early because you're always on the back foot, and now you've got to constantly work your way through it. We're taking a look now at the points. These are the ones from the previous race, but obviously 81 points was what Ren Velten had. But of course, they've added a little bit more to that. So the gap's grown now. Yeesh, 17 points. Ren Velten lead over Armamentario. 255, then G League, then MJITG, then Firefly Visceral, Williams Esports Academy, West Competition Racing, BS Competition, 10th place. Wow. Junior, I would not have predicted that.
That last result, I think emphasizes the struggles that they're going to be in if they can't be consistent, right? So you're going to want to make sure that this last race of the day, they need to get a result onto the board. They have to bring that gap down. On the other hand, this is what Steve was mentioning between the last race, right? If you're Ren Velten, you've got that big gap. It gives you the confidence to know, right, we've got this margin. We know how many positions we are clear of the rest of the field. Maybe we don't have to be so aggressive.
I actually think this is a really simple matter. BS Competition, 72 points. They're quite a long way off at this moment. But tonight, Nils will go to bed. He'll wake up. He'll tidy his bed. And we've seen so far that is the key to the good results. So I'm sure they'll have a good day tomorrow. Plenty of races tomorrow, of course. Do check out on the VCO Esports channel. It's linked in the description. 19 more exciting races to come. But tonight we only have one more exciting race to come. The Ferrari 488 Challenge was just now. The final car of the day is the Porsche 992 Cup car around the fearsome Catalunya circuit. Lots of long corners, lots of challenging corners, and then of course the very long straight. And Arjuna, would you make of this combination, the Porsche around Catalunya?
Everyone knows I love a Porsche. As we take a look at qualifying, ST Racing Esports on top, so a bit of a surprise there. MJ, ITJ second, BS third, and then Ren Velton. I'll be honest in saying I don't quite know if this car has got traction control and ABS because it's optional in the real world as to whether series use it or not. But I think if it is, that's one thing that will make this combo a little bit easier. If it is ABS and traction control off, this is a really difficult one to avoid locking up the inside tire through some of the longer braking zones, to avoid spinning out the rear end and, you know, heating up your tires. It's a challenging combo, but the car is challenging. That's what it's meant to do. Challenge young racing drivers to figure out who Porsche needs to promote to the next generation of sports car drivers.
You can turn it off. I think you can turn traction on ABS off on this car. I'm pretty sure most of them will. For Niels Nyox, by the way, he's driving the BS competition car. Basically, this is a must-win race for them, isn't it, Stephen? This is the thing, is that they've been put onto the back foot now because of those results. Now Niels Nyox has to do more of the work. He's already doing the heavy lifting for the car. He obviously won Bathurst. It is almost becoming already a must-win scenario for them.
It's getting that way. As I touched upon earlier, I think all they got to do, is just be nice and consistent. Ideally, finish ahead of Ren Velton. Ideally. But if he, picks up a third and beats Ren Velton, okay, it's only 1 point, maybe, but they just kind of got to hope, I think, at this point, that Ren Velton have a bad qualifying, a collision or something, or a penalty. But it's looking comfortable for Ren Velton. It's nice to have that lead, because once you have that lead in the championship, in the point standings, you know that you can just play things a little bit safer, take a little bit less risk. If someone's up your inside, you can just give them the space, and you can afford to lose 1 point. You can afford to lose 2-3 points. So that's going to be interesting to watch as we head onto the grid for the final race.
Yeah, indeed. Final race of the evening. You'll see all the drivers jump in. The lights will come on for each of the cars as they get themselves ready. On the left-hand side there, that white, blue and black car, that of course is the car that Niels Nyox is behind the wheel of. Almost must win for them. You're absolutely right. Ren Velton for them. It's just keep out of trouble in this race. Make sure you're not involved in any contact. But Barcelona kind of does that, doesn't it? I mean, it's such a long run down towards turn one as you come through the final complex corners. It can really open up that big dive, that big send, that big attempt, and you can be spun around.
It's an awkward track as well at times, right? With the way it flows, the elevation change works with and against you, camber through some of the corners. There's a reason. There is a reason why Formula One comes here to test at the end of the day. It presents so many different challenges. Now, that's made the Formula One Grand Prix over the last, 10, 15 years quite boring as well because they have so much data. But who's going to be brave? Who's going to risk it on the brakes? And who's going to send it to close off day one of VCOxLFM Infinity?
This is the last time that we get to play this little game. Steve, how many cars are going to be backwards at turn one?
I think 0. I'm going to have loads of faith in these guys this time around, and I think they're going to get through just fine.
Arjuna?
Oh, I'm going 2. I can't see it not happening.
3. Straight up 3. Bang. Obviously, there's no contact until they start the race, so don't panic about some of these extreme warm-up tactics. They're trying to get some heat into the brakes, into the tyres as well. Into the final corner then. Race 5 of 24 here, but it is the last one on this Friday evening for VCOxLFM Infinity. We're going to have a lot of fun over the entirety of this event. And we're already having some fun so far, but we're seeing a big control being taken by Ren Velton. Will that continue and will it extend as we head down into that first complex of corners? Good start from the number 38, the pole-sitting car of ST Racing, who might just hang on to the race lead as they work their way through. Big camera angle at the top. Steve's right, I think.
No, there was one.
There was one or two. Steve's wrong.
At least one, if not two. So two in my ear. I was right. I'm claiming it. But it is not Ren Velten that lead up towards this second sector of the lap, and that's important because Ren Velten have, when they've led, been able to control, break away, and then just 20 minutes of riding around. Now that Lozio leads, Gronewold's got pressure from Samantha Town Racing behind, BS Plus in the mix as well. Like you said, must-win situation. Let's get the elbows out. Let's get the action underway.
Good start from Lozio, though, obviously, to take the many letters all the way up towards the front. I don't know if I'm going to be able to remember it well, by the end of the race, by the end of the event, ITJ setups. I'm not going to be able to remember that off the top of my head. But they are leading. Luca Lozio is in the control. There was a look from Niels Niox to try and get past the Samantha Town Racing car, as we'll take a look at Visceral here with the Armamentario car directly behind, and you've got the Williams Academy car directly ahead. Gorka could have a good race here. Obviously had really good pace earlier on in the day. Was it COTA?
It was, until things started to go wrong for him, right? So it's one of those things where stay out of trouble, and maybe there's plenty of speed. He's got a hungry Sam Gaskell behind, though, as they clamber over the curbs, wrap around this long final corner, which I've got to say, it's so nice that in the real world we've come to our senses and stopped using that chicane and just gone back to the double right-hander, old sector as it used to be. Visceral going to pinch, though, on the run down to turn one, deep onto the brakes. Who wins out here?
Yeah, there goes the look to the outside. Williams with the inside line. Gorka is able to hang on. By the way, that chicane was excellent when MotoGP used it. Obviously, it was for horrible reasons, but it did make it made an absolutely cracking race in MotoGP, I've got to say. But that's fine. That's a different kettle of fish. There is Hutchinson, who's dropped back then into third position after grabbing the pole, staring at the two drivers ahead. Of course, Lozio, Gronewold. Get the feeling, like I say, Niels Niox will be feeling pretty hungry to get through. I mean, Steve, let's talk about this a second. Obviously, we said this might be a must-win race essentially for BS competition. Niels Niox, their heavy hitter behind the wheel at the moment, looking at fourth position and now thinking, how do I get through not only on Hutchinson but on Gronewold, on Lozio as well, drivers that he's raced against time and time again.
Yeah, that's going to be super frustrating to have qualified ahead of Ren Velten and Gronewold. To only find yourself down in fourth immediately. So he's going to have to plot a way to get past these guys. I think the main thing, we touched upon this I think in the first race, is can he just get ahead of Gronewold? That would be his main aim, I think. It adds adds 1 point to your championship and takes 1 point from them, and it makes a bit of a statement as well. So I think that would be his main aim, just to try to at least get ahead of Gronewold in second place.
Back out onto the start-finish straight then. Let's see what the slipstream's like. Obviously, Hutchinson's going to be getting some from Gronewold. Half a second between first and second place. It's about the same gap here between Niox and Hutchinson. It does seem as though not quite enough to close down. Battle low behind Gorka and Gaskell. I believe Visceral was looking to the inside there to try and switch through and get past the Williams Esports Academy car, but I think Gorka was still able to hang on.
And I think that's the indication, right, of how much they want to hold on to the position. Everyone else is coming as far onto the left-hand side on entry into turn one, trying to open up the corner. They're basically pinched to the right-hand side of the track, just compromising one another. And so definitely feeling that Gorka does not want to give up the place to the Visceral 44. Feels like he's a little bit faster in these early stages. And this is a car, Lewis, that even though there's relatively little to tweak on it and to change in terms of the setup, the things that you can change do have value. And so one thing that, you know, between the day and the night that some of these teams and drivers might be thinking about is tire pressures, right? We know that on Assetto Corsa Competizione, there is a peak window for the tire once it gets warmed up and into its window. Make sure the initial tire pressures are right. There's a big wiggle, though Gladius Competition trying to take advantage. Absolute Motorsport trying to hang on.
Yeah, to the outside. Gladius is going to go deep onto the brakes, but I think Absolute might be able to hang on here with the inside line going through the final corner, into the final sector rather. Big Brain's going to sat behind now. If they have a big brain, they might back out of this one a little bit. Oh, it's small brain alert. Oh no.
Yeah, not the finest hour there for these guys. Just kind of choked up on the exit, and sometimes that's just happening. You know, the car in front kind of gets compromised. Car behind gets compromised, and it looks like they're going to get overtaken around the outside. They try desperately to keep their position, and just an awkward bit of contact. It's so painful to see, but it does happen quite a lot in sim racing.
It's the Concertina effect. Obviously, going into that sector, yeah, one car slows on ahead, and there's a little bit of contact. I'd say small brain, obviously. To be fair, there's kind of fun where it's like there's not actually that much you can actually handle in all that. As the outside run comes in from G League, battling it out with Gladius, I believe, as we head our way through the opening sector. And there will be the switch. Sorry, it's not Gladius. It was G League versus 255. So Seville's working his way up now inside the top 10. With the inside run going through turn 3 up towards 4. Big look to the outside, back up to the race lead. And it is still Luca Lozio from Gronewold, from Hutchinson, and from Niox.
I think this is where, if you are Tobias Gronewold, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, right? Is it really every position's worth a point? Do you need to win this race? Answer is no. You could finish second and you'd be pretty happy. But you could see a small mistake sitting behind. I think Gronewold thinks he might be faster, and if there are mistakes that creep in, opens the door for Hutchinson, who has the fastest lap of the race, was very quick in qualifying, or, more importantly, the driver that's surely thinking aggression first, ask questions later, make the answers up now for Niox. You've got to get to the front. You've got to make sure race 5 ends up with a BS towards the front. A little bit more of the answers being thrown everywhere. Further behind, though, is Firefly back into the thick of the action.
Yeah, indeed. After the previous race, there's a look at an ultra-wide. It's a single screen that wraps around for the most part. I don't think there's a second and third, but we can't really see from that angle. Curious look down on the drive. We don't typically see this angle, Steve. I
don't think I've ever seen that angle ever used in any sim racing webcam ever. So 10 out of 10 for originality.
Who was it who used to have, was it Ricard, who used to put the camera slightly behind stuff? Like it'd be
so
like,
you could just see like 5% of the screen, a little bit of a view inside, and the rest was just like blocked off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, Ricard.
My goodness. That's obviously from Team Redline. As the outside run comes in from Firefly, that could be a big move. That's a lovely one to get that one ticked off. I mean, that was really tidily done. Going through the exit of turn 2, just really well read. And now Absolute might work their way through as well. That was a really tasty move.
Yeah, well engineered, I think. Sometimes you just got to engineer that space on the exit of 2 into 3, as cars kind of just open up the third corner. And they can just leave that space open, so just peel off, just keep the throttle in, just aim for the gap. You're going to go a little bit slower, but you can gain the position. Sorry, Lewis.
I think you're spot on. That was a lovely move, and again, lovely racing. And like I say, well thought out as well. Just, I think a lot of the times in Barcelona, I mean, Arjuna, you said earlier on, it's an awkward track at points, especially in like GT style cars. To make a move out here, you've kind of got to be thinking about it 2, 3, 4 corners ahead, and that's exactly what we saw there.
Yeah, and I tell the story sometimes. I was doing an endurance race at this track where we had LMP1, LMP2 and GTE cars. I was in the P2s, and Paddy Wolf in this final sector right around here went around my outside in a P1 car, and it really irritated me. Why? Who knows? I was a racing driver back then. And I said over the radio to my teammates, the next time that Paddy does that, I'm going to crash into him. I forgot that I was streaming on Twitch, and as you can imagine, the next time Paddy did that to me, I didn't crash into him, but I did get a message from him after the race that went, what did he say? What did he say? Barcelona's just one of those tracks that makes racing drivers angry. Ask Lewis Hamilton, ask Nico Rosberg.
I was qualified in 4th place here and then disconnected on the starting grid. I was fuming because I thought I might have won that race. So, yeah, in that sense, yeah, sure, that was a long time ago. And it was against Eric Strana of the FIA, just chucking that one out there. I beat him in qualifying. But don't worry about it. It's fine. My claim to fame.
Hey, I'm just impressed you got through an entire race at Bathurst without mentioning, ooh, I did a race at Bathurst without getting an incident point, and you know who else did that? Max Verstappen. No.
Well, here's the story. Do you know that I've actually done an entire 12-hour race at Bathurst with Dan Kell, and we didn't get a single incident point. And the only other team in the entirety of that competition that did that was Enzo Benito and Max Verstappen. Thanks for bringing that up on this stream.
That's quite a good record. I must say...
Don't you start, Steve. Don't you feed his ego.
In a similar vein, and I'd say that this possibly a better achievement, possibly. I did the 12-hour Bathurst on my own and got 8 incident points and finished second.
Dude,
I think that's pretty good, but then I got disqualified because you have to change the driver. So that wasn't good.
That's
fair play.
impressive. Me and Dan did not finish in second. We finished 7th, I think. But we didn't.
How many fast repairs did you use?
Well, none, because we didn't have any incidents. Because we're good. We're actually good. You're the fast repair, Holger. I just think this extremely long title that we had in the sim racing team once. Arjuna, we had 4 fast repairs. This is in Jimmy's 23-hour Zolder race. We had 4 fast repairs. Arjuna hogged 2 of them. Dan Kell took 1. Cam Roger took 1. I'm sat there being like, great, I didn't get any. Cool. Thanks, lads.
Yes, what happens when you're the slowest, Lewis? You're expected not to crash the car.
I was not slower than Cameron Roger.
No, you were definitely not slower than Cameron Roger. You are correct there. Sorry, Cam.
He's not watching playing golf, it's fine. He's playing very different type of golf at the moment.
Speaking of sim racing in general, you guys in the chat will have to let me know if you think I should jump on ACC for a bit more. Obviously, normally I'm on GranTurismo. But watching these races, these cars, these tracks, these are really good combinations. They look really fun. This racing looks really fun. Maybe I should be jumping into some of these further down the line.
I want to see that. I'm just going to say it now. I'll chuck it in there. I want to see you drive clearly a GTC Porsche. Or maybe check the KTM round Bathurst to see what you can do. At the moment, though, focusing on this race, did seem Gladius have got a 10-second time penalty.
Yep, race control handing down the penalty for contact, I'm pretty sure, with the 204, the Absolute Motorsport car. So overall, race control hasn't had to be too involved in the proceedings. That's the word that I'm looking at. Because let's be honest, our poor race control team in previous VCO Infinities, where we have had as many as 40, 50 cars in each race, I think it's fair to say, Lewis, they've been inundated, swarmed, overcome with a deluge of incidents. It's been a much cleaner event overall so far, although this is just day 1.
Yeah, indeed. I think things are going to get... like I said, there's going to be a race or 2 tomorrow where the elbows are really going to come out. I did see the post in chat that from VCO Esports that the conditions, the drivers are aware of the rough conditions that we're going to get, i.e. day, night, dry, rain, which means that we are definitely going to get some of that wet weather hitting the circuit at some point tomorrow. And that's going to make things interesting. Like I say, race control are going to have a lot to deal with when it comes to that, but at the moment they've been dealing with things very, very nicely. They're hoping to see a 4-car battle unfold really nicely here towards the front of the field, because it is still this 4-car fight. You've got MJI to Giuseppe that's leading with Luca Lozio. You've got Rem Belton, of course, in 2nd place with Tobias Grunewald. You've got Smatsam Racing with Hutchinson in 3rd, and you've got BS Competition, Niels Nyox behind the wheel in 4th. All 4 of these separated by just over a second with 6 minutes left to go.
Can I just say that when I'm racing the Nürburgring in the NLS series in real life, when the Porsche Cup cars come round to lap you, it's like this. They are nose to tail in some of the most intense racing on the whole grid. And even though they're lapping just behind each other, it looks like there's no overtakes and no defending so far. I can promise you it's super intense. They are not making any mistakes because they are completely focused. And I mean, you can see the intensity on his face there. He is absolutely locked in. These guys are just absolutely on the limit and not 1% over it.
It's so hard to drive. I mean, we've seen these Cup cars race quite a lot. I mean, Arjuna's got his fair share of commentating. He's got certainly not driving, but
whoa,
the highest level of these Cup cars.
Okay,
and,
fair.
Like this is the style of race that you get. It is quite hard to pass them. That's the important bit with these cars. They are difficult to pass. They don't spit out that much of a slipstream, so actually finding a way past can be tricky.
No, and that's there's a reason why Porsche All-Stars, which is the support series for the Porsche Esports Super Cup, I made sure that I was only invited to drive for a round where it was not in the Porsche Cup car, because I was like, I don't want to embarrass myself trying to talk and drive that car at the same time. So instead I chose the Porsche 963, which is a great choice. Loved my time at Le Mans. This car though, Lewis, I mean, Steve talks about seeing them in the rearview mirror at the Nordschleife. There are some great onboard videos. If you've never gone down the rabbit hole of jumping onto YouTube and watching onboard videos, well, we'll get back to that later. 501 does a little bit of a loop-de-loop.
Yeah, that was just, once again, the creme de la course car that just went for a bit of a spin. Easy peasy, but just went out a little bit too wide going into turn 3, clipped the grass, and then looped it round, and they dropped yet more positions back up to the lead battle, though, and back to your story time.
Oh, I was just going to say, go search on YouTube, Sean Edwards Nürburgring. You'll find a race in the wet. That's what racing is all about. Anyway.
That's crazy, man. I mean, look, like, to be fair, any laps around the Nordschleife was pretty intense. I'd like to have seen the Nordschleife, but obviously it doesn't really fit into this kind of format. Obviously, seems you had a fair few laps around there, so I'm pretty sure we'd like to see it in this competition, but maybe one day, Yeah,
I was thinking with 20-minute races, you're only going to be doing 2 laps, which, sure, it could actually still make for a very exciting race, because obviously you're building up towards that Dottinger Höhe at the end of the lap, the long straight, and that's often how those races play out at that circuit. But around here, a little bit different equation. I would say that the consistency has been staggering from these guys. It just shows you, I think when you get a race like this, when they're kind of static in position, it just shows you that they are on the limit of what's possible. These guys are just absolutely finding the limit of this car and this circuit. They're not going over it, they're not going under it, and it is hard to do that for 20 minutes consistently without making a single mistake.
It's not the commentator's curse, but there was definitely some overdrive in there from Wenwell, and Tobias Groenewold dropped it in a little bit too deep. Hutchinson's trying to get around the outside. Could be the double position switch here as Niels Nyox knocks his way onto the scene, comes through turn 9, down towards 10 to the outside of Rem Welton, and their main championship challenger to the inside. Rem Welton's going to go. Nyox tries to get to the outside. Lozio's checked out at the moment, and they're somehow Niels Nyox drops back to 4th place despite being second over at the sector split. Lozio has a 1.2 second margin.
I was going to say, the Silver Fox plotting there. Wiley from Nyox placed himself in a position to try and grab 2 for 1, but no, drops back in time. And there you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, I think Niels is the only driver in this battle that hasn't sent us a webcam look, so that's a little bit weird. Can't see the look of stress on his face right now.
Yeah, he, to be fair, he always kind of looks a little bit calm until there's a little bit of contact, at which point he gets a bit frustrated. But that's fine, that's different. In this, I don't think he would look particularly stressed, to be honest.
No, I've watched his streams and he doesn't look stressed at all. I think he'd be a little bit frustrated after that moment between the 2 cars in front. They didn't at least gain 1 position. He could have maybe even gained 2, but to come out of all of that in 4th, I think he would be a little bit disappointed. I
actually completely agree. I've had one of those ones before where it's like you've actually lost a lot of time, or you've maybe even lost a position. You're kind of something like, how am I the one that didn't make anything up?
Yeah.
It's someone else's mistake, and I don't get to benefit from it, despite having the best position to do so. But it's just, you know, Hutchinson filled. To be fair, that's actually more credit to Hutchinson there, because as soon as Nyox went to the outside of Groenewold, Hutchinson had already filled in that gap straight behind Groenewold, knowing that you're not going to go around the outside at turn 10. So that's kind of one of those ones like racing, like just being aware on that side of things as well. So credit to Hutchinson for that.
And we haven't talked much about Hutchinson, right, outside of praising his effort in qualifying. Best performance so far of the day for Samantha Tan Racing Esports, so really cool to see, hoping that momentum gets carried forward into tomorrow. He will have to drive 2 cars, remember. That's the part of the format. You get a minimum of 3 drivers, maximum of 5. Every driver must drive 2 different cars, and they're not allowed to do back-to-back races, with the exception of this one and the first one tomorrow. So if Niels Nyox wants to get a good night of sleep and come in tomorrow full of steam to try and kick off the charge for BS competition, well, Lewis, he could very well do so.
Well, do you know who's doing the next race?
Let me guess. Is it Niels Nyox?
No, I thought it was. I've just checked. I thought, genuinely, I thought it was Niels Nyox. Just said that.
You walked me into that one.
I did. Yeah. Do you know who it is?
Come on.
Niels Nyox. No, it's actually after camera. I thought it was Niels Nyox. That's fine.
Look at you.
Maybe they've changed around. I don't know if they can change them late, can they? Or
they get 3 jokers.
Oh, so they could change it.
Yes, but only, you know, that's meant for more, you know, technical issues. A driver loses internet, or it's not technical, a driver has to go use the bathroom and he misses the qualifying session. Something like that, you know. Human factors.
That is a technical issue, that is, my goodness. To be fair, there's no really excuse to have that happen there. But I think Tobias Groenewold is doing back-to-backs. He's doing this race and the next race, but obviously again tomorrow. So that'll be interesting. Groenewold's one of the ones on the list to tick that one off. Clearly feeling pretty confident in the car. Niels Noak satisfied with just doing the 3 races on this Friday. We are on the final lap. Does it low? The podium might escape him. Losio's been fantastic though, isn't he?
Losio has been great. I was watching him in the Monza race. He took part in that one as well. In the McLaren, had a really good result there. So Losio is definitely one to look out for whenever he's driving. But this race, just never put a foot wrong. Really consistent. Once again, great performance. I mean, look at that intensity from Hutchinson. I love to see that. But yeah, it's been a great race from this top 4.
I think that's actually Losio. I mean, he is.
Oh, is that Losio?
Yeah, I think it is seriously intense. My God, I'm terrified. Cracking drive though, excellent drive from Luca Losio, and it means that we do have 4 different winners on this opening day, and so we can chuck MGITJ setups onto the list. Great stuff, honestly, and a lovely opening to the day. But Ren Welton, they're looking so strong. 2nd place again, another quality result. More points being taken, more gaps being grown as we see the final few cross the line.
I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure what their worst result of the day at this point is a 3rd position or something like that. I mean, 5 races, that level of consistency, it sets them up so well. And knowing that you've got to approach this more like a championship than anything else, 24 individual races to crown our winner, Ren Welton, the one to beat, with Friday now in the books.
Yeah, indeed. And like you say, I think there's a few teams and stuff that will be going to bed with a lot on their mind, which is how to step it up. Obviously, great drive from Luca Losio and MGITJ setups, and a lovely victory. And I think this is the thing with this competition. Despite Ren Welton being effectively at the moment dominant on the points, we've still had 4 different winners from 5 races teams-wise. Which is what this competition is kind of all about, Steve, where we see these different races, we see these different cars, these different tracks, and throughout all of it, we see different winners all the time.
Yeah, it's really good to see that. It's been Ren Welton have been pretty much the only team really to have been up there every race. Everyone else has been fairly mixed so far. I'm just still really interested to see tomorrow 19 more races. It's like, if this is the Formula 1 season, we're still in like March or April, and there's still so many more months to come. But yeah, there's so many more qualifyings and lap ones and possible incidents to come, and I'm sure that order will change. But it'll be really interesting to see this leaderboard at the end of today, the first day of this event. Ren Welton obviously looking comfortable, but I think there's going to be a couple of teams there who are still within range of winning. This isn't out of range yet. Ren Welton comfortable, but definitely nothing's over. Nothing's over just yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here's the provisional results from the race there. MGITJ setups taking the victory. Ren Welton, ST Racing, and then of course BS Competition there in 4th. Visceral up in the top 5. Great to see them. T55 still up in the top 10 though, so they're doing a cracking job. Williams Esports Academy also up there as well. But again, we really do need to focus on that big points gap that Ren Welton are pulling on the rest of the field. It's been an excellent opening Friday for them. That was the points they had coming into it on 108. The points they have going out of it, well, we'll update you in just a sec. The math, it's all being crunched behind the scenes. The numbers, they're so tight and complicated. Even Arjuna can't figure it out.
I mean, you don't want me to figure it out at the end of the day. Commentators' math, definitely don't trust that. Never trust it. You and I, we're on the same page about many things, even if we don't agree on whether the commentator's curse is real or not. But, you know, we mixed up the format for this VCOxLFM Infinity from the 3 previous runnings of the event that we've had. It's been a blast so far. Can't wait for tomorrow when about 11:15 CEST we start again on VCO's channels alongside LFM's channel as well. Steve, it's been a blast having you join us as well. Hope you've enjoyed the format, because I think me and Lewis, we've done this now 4 times. We'd love to do this as many times a year as we can.
Yeah, this has been really interesting. You know, not something I'd normally do, ACC, not a game I'd normally play. But watching this race and the format, I really like events done in a different way, which add some jeopardy and make it difficult for the drivers to race. So the event's been great. And yes, guys, please do check out the VCO esports channel. It's linked in the description. The event continues tomorrow over on their channel. 19 more races to come, so plenty more to happen still.
Yeah, and thankfully, if you hate me and Arjuna commentating together, you've been sick of it today, you only have 2 races to deal with it tomorrow, and that's race 14 and 15. So it's fine. Other than that, you get a very small person and a northerner, so it's fine. It's all good. We tick both of those two off. It's Ewan O'Leary and Dareth Thacker, by the way. We'll cover that off tomorrow.
I mean, they're both short, though. That's when you started that off, I was like...
yeah, right. They are both quite small, but no. Obviously, I've had a great evening, and I hope everyone else has as well. Watching, I mean, we've seen some cracking racing. I mean, I think probably the big highlight was probably the fight in that opening race between Niox and that remote car.
Yeah, that was a brilliant battle between the two of them. Took Nils. Well, he didn't get past in the end, did he? But he had a good 3 or 4 attempts into that final sector. So I'm hoping that more of that battling can happen tomorrow, and we'll see if anyone can catch that gap to Ren Welton. They've got a good 20 or so points advantage, but with 19 races to go, I'm sure something can happen.
Yeah, for sure. We're waiting for the points, but unfortunately, they're not going to work. Sadly, we'll update them all tomorrow morning, Steve.
Yep. I mean, I'm surprised, Lewis, because earlier you did 28 times 24 in the matter of seconds, and I would have expected that you'd had all of it worked out by now.
I know. I'm just sometimes it's what excuse can I come up with? It's the humidity. It's really increased.
Of course.
Yeah.
That always famously makes it difficult to do math, but we'll have the scores up very soon. But what do you make of Ren Welton's consistency? Because I think that is, for me, what wins championships. Just the fact that they just didn't have a bad qualifying or have an incident. It's so easy to get something wrong, and they didn't.
Lewis said it's not a question of if but when. Eventually you're going to have a bad race. It's just making sure that you've built up enough good results before then that you can, reduce the damage that the one bad result does have. So I think that's going to be the question. What is the race tomorrow? What's the combo that Ren Welton may be concerned about, and how can they take the momentum they built today and carry that forward to tomorrow? Because there are a couple more breaks across the schedule to allow race control and us as a broadcast team to grab a break between some of these races. But, we've had 5 back-to-back races. It's going to be a very similar story when we get ready to go tomorrow.
And yeah, just taking a quick look at the schedule there. But yeah, please do. Yeah, there it is. Let's take a quick look at the races tomorrow. So it's the same cars that we've seen today, but again, in lots of different tracks. So plenty more races to come. So please do check those out on the VCO esports channel. But we are going to wrap this one up. Thank you so much to VCO, to LFM, and of course to Arjuna and Lewis for their amazing commentary on today's races. And thank you guys for watching at home. I really hope you enjoyed this one. And something a little bit different on this channel. And please do check out VCO. That's the last message, I guess. And have an amazing evening. We'll see you next time.